Oh, yeah. Playing on the Game Boy. What is up? Man, I have been so excited for the show. Welcome to the Hangout with Adam Ryan.
Adam told me before the show that this is the most excited you've been about something in years. That's what kind of show you could expect tonight.
I'm hoping I can live up to that. Now, I'm not going to say I'm the most excited thing specifically because, my wife's out there. I was very excited to get very
sure.
to
I
her.
mean, project-wise,
Projects,
like
things
that
that
type
we've
of
been up
course.
to.
In the last 2 years, you've been married. So I'm going to say, obviously, like that hails over this. Hey, happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome to the Hangout with
Heck
Adam
yeah.
and Ryan.
It's so
Yeah, see, there it is. She's in the chat.
Hell
she
yeah,
heard
she
it from
is.
the beginning.
Number one fan there. She knows.
Cheers.
Hopefully
Stealth
you're
Mouse.
feeling better, babe. So just to
Oh,
think
not feeling good?
she's had COVID this week. It has
man.
not been a good week.
You
So
know, that is going around for sure. And the type of work that Stealth Mouse does, that makes sense. Ugh. Hope you feel better.
yes, I mean it's been a couple days and it's not been great. So
man.
hang in there, babe. Thanks for
Hang in there.
Thanks
for hanging out.
Hanging out. That's what this is for.
Laying in bed, hanging out, watching Adam and Ryan.
So we got a stacked show. Man, there's so much to go. We released an idea on a project. We have so much progress, at least. I
Adam
feel
had
like we
no,
do.
and we had no product. We had no progress basically last time. We had ideas that were floating around and like action items to do. And Adam has went above and beyond the Call of Duty to show off what he has been working on, which is great.
It's and it wasn't anything that like I was like, oh, I'm gonna just like try to be a tryhard and go through it. I just ended up
Look at
falling
this
into
try
this.
hard.
But let's do the quick rundown of the show. We
Okay.
got some stories in there. We got
course.
some insights on like Ryan's Super Bowl picks with AI.
You know, like the AI's been picking picks for my parents for Super Bowl picks all year, so we had to do a Super Bowl pick. That's coming up.
Hell
Who's
yeah.
gonna win? Taylor Swift or the other team?
Well, if you would have heard the news, it was all about Drake today. So
Oh, is that right?
somebody's dong got leaked online,
What?
and that completely took over the
Oh
internet.
man, Drake's D is getting trending on Twitter.
So yeah, it's not. It's bad. So we're gonna talk about a little bit of those picks. We had some deep fake information.
Yeah.
It was
There's like
fun.
3 or 4 news stories that we want to hit on AI. Like I don't want to
Okay.
spoil them.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
want to spoil
Oh,
them,
I
but
got
we're gonna
you.
have a few.
Fair enough.
There's some some cool things. Definitely like. Not necessarily like technical, like software getting developed, but like big interesting things about AI in general, I would say.
Hell yeah, I'm excited to talk about a couple of these. One thing we didn't put on the agenda, and we'll just get it off the top, is Halo 2 season is
Look,
out.
I put Halo series, but I forgot
Oh!
to drag it to the top.
So we might talk about that. I haven't watched a single
No.
ounce of that, so I don't know. if
Have
it's
you watched the
anything good.
trailer?
I have not watched anything. I've been
Man.
completely off.
Let's watch the trailer.
We're gonna get DMA.
cares?
Me, because we put it on YouTube and then it like they don't allow it.
They just like they doesn't allow to have ads on
You
it.
can't stream it in certain countries, and then they don't.
What if
allow
we
you to,
What if we watched it with no sound?
Maybe we'll see where we get with the
We'll
show.
talk over the top of it really loudly. and-
We'll do a Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh
Put
God.
us in the court. We're adding content to this, Microsoft product,
we're
really.
helping you out there.
Yeah.
But all right, so let's just jump right in. I think we need to
because
talk about that.
then obviously this whole second half of the show is like our new Game Boy project that Adam has been working on. I have been working less on, but some on, and like we're gonna show off the different parts of it that we've done, the progress that we've made, and really like probably dig into like GB Studio and like be adding and uploading new content, showing off what we've done. That's gonna be the whole big second half of the show, and Adam is freaking bursting at the seams.
Are you feeling it? Are you
I
feeling
am.
it? Because I just want to show you because I'm so excited. And you
Yeah.
know what? There's a reason why I'm excited. And it's not
Okay.
just because of this last 2 weeks. This is like I would say it's 13 years in the making.
That's true.
And
That's true. Because we did land on what we think we want to do for at least the theme of this particular Game Boy game, which won't be in the actual art assets that we see here, but we'll talk about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We want to jump in?
Yeah, let's do it because it's like, I feel like we could do quick hits of these stories, right?
Oh, yeah.
So first one, if you had been watching the show in previous weeks through this entire football season, I had been using Google Bard to make predictions of who is going to win every single football game and asking Google Bard, hey, who's going to win? And then my mom was going in and like turning those in at a casino place that like does those kind of pick 'em things. And she won $150 based on AI.
Yeah. There you go.
Anyway, so Super Bowl coming up, right? And so we were like, all right, I'm going to go in and ask it. Now, interesting thing that I didn't realize, if Google Bard is no longer Google Bard.
Yeah.
It's Gemini.
Yeah, they changed
so
it.
they
Okay.
changed it. So like even in the last between and when I picked it last time and this time, completely different. And I was like, I'm going to go to every single different AI that I have logins for and ask it to give me Super Bowl picks. Let's see. ChatGPT would not give me any sort of even the slightest version of a Super Bowl pick. It was like, here's like, and I tried a lot of different ways. I was like, pretend you're a sports analyst, right? And you know, and I'm asking you, what is your prediction for the Super Bowl game between the 49ers and, you know, the Chiefs? And it was like, I would think about which quarterback was better, A team or B team. And I was like, what?
Oh God.
And so it would not come anywhere close. It would be like, I don't do any of that. I asked Claude AI, hey, who's going to win the Super Bowl? I don't know anything about any of that. It would not even try it. I go to Google Bard, which I have been doing, or Gemini now. And I've been doing this all year. Who's going to win this game and this game? Oh, here's the odds. Here's the things. Here's who I would pick. I do it this time and it goes like, well, so I have it here. If you would like to look.
Let's get to that.
Yeah. So I just took a screenshot of here's Gemini's and I was like, who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl this weekend? And it's like, I can't predict who's definitely going to win any of this stuff, but here's sort of factors that you could take in, and then you could come to your own decision about who might go. Whatever team is great. And I was like, no. Like, I need you to. So I said, so if you go down, and I go, that's fine, right?
This is this one that cool.
This is cool. I was like, cool. But if you had to make a prediction based on the knowledge, who would you pick? One of these two teams? Because I had to do that previously.
Sure.
And it was like, finally got to, based on pure statistics and trends, the 49ers appear to have a slight edge. And I was like, great. I'm going to try to get it to narrow down and tell me what the actual score is going to be. I was like, great, you picked the 49ers. And then it was like, I did not pick the 49ers.
Oh.
Like it was so trying to hedge its bets that it was like, that is not what I did.
I actually haven't definitely picked either
team to win. I need to be transparent about what I am doing. It was like, man, I was like, come on. You know, and it was like, and then it spent the whole rest of the time telling me, here's other places you could go to get that. So, the only thing that I could even closely get to a Super Bowl pick out of AI was the 49ers are slightly, basically have a slight edge. Was the most that I could get.
Yeah, it was based off of this. So here's my thought is that I've run into some of these scenarios before, and I think this is where prompting becomes a really big factor, because if you do it like, okay, what if the 47ers football team against the Jansis Midi football team?
Do you think
yeah?
Well, because I wanted to do it because what I don't want it to do is just be like, hey, here's a plausible score of football games, right? I want it to be like, look at who the 49ers are and like, where their backgrounds are. Is it a home game? Are they kicking into the wind? Like all that stuff that goes in there. Yo, origami.
Hey, yo, what's up, Talon? Welcome to the show, man. Yeah. I think they're trying to nerf AI.
They are. They 100%
But
are.
with this one, this is such a high, stakes kind of thing, and like gambling and all that.
Totally.
Like, man.
But before, when it was Google Bard, like I would say, who's going to win this weekend, the Panthers or the Broncos? And it would go, here's the betting line. Here's the stuff. I think they're going to win 20-17. Like it would give me all of those things. And now it's like, nope, slight edge, but that's it. So anyway, I thought that was fun. If you want AI's pick, they say 49ers. But you know, I think I'm voting with Taylor Swift and the Chiefs.
You're going for the Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's a tough one. And like, you know, I haven't watched a lot of football this year, but everyone's talking about like, gosh, why is it about Taylor Swift and not the damn teams and all of that other stuff? Whatever.
I would care maybe if the same teams didn't go to the Super Bowl every freaking year. I could care about
49ers didn't go.
What? The 49ers have been like 10 times in the last 20 years. Like, I'm just saying, I personally hate dynasties, and why it is nice. Baseball, you know, hey, a little shout out to baseball.
Oh God, you're going to go in the baseball kick.
Just like they don't, you know, like baseball is so random enough that there usually isn't the same exact teams in the World Series that there is. Like weird random teams like the Royals and the Marlins and stuff like that can get in there.
So you hear to hear, double drop down. According to our AI picks, you got 49ers.
49ers, and that even helps me choose then the Chiefs as the place to root for because I want the underdogs. F you,
what?
AI.
They just won last year.
Well, that's
Screw
true.
them.
Yeah, well, you know, I guess I don't know enough about it. I guess I want Taylor Swift to win.
No, I don't want that.
I just want I just want them to piss off whoever's mad at Taylor Swift.
Next story. We're doing hits. I'm all in on the Dolphins winning. Yeah. Nice. Hey, if you're a Dolphins fan, did you know that
Disturbed Shifty is a huge Dolphins fan?
Yes, he is. So going from the next story, deep fake dupes.
Yeah. Tell me about this.
Okay, so we've heard about deep fakes. How many times do you get the Nigerian prince email we always heard about? And you're like, whatever. Okay, AI steps into the game and they start upping the security, the ways that we navigate certain things, all right? So we're starting to say, hey, it's not misspelled anymore. The emails that we get, the phishing that we get starts to be a little different. In the industry I work, one of the bigger things that have been hitting is they'll be like, hey, I'm the president, and they somehow like pretend that they're the president and they send an email and say, I need you to go get this gift card for this thing that you need to do and then send me the thing. And you kind of like
the president of the university is asking for gift cards and people are falling for that.
Well, the way that they've done it is like they've been very convincing because they have the name, it comes up, they mention like, hey, I was working with this person and this person. So it starts to build this plausibility around it because they research it. They may use AI to come up with the concept. So we heard this, but then usually they're like, what? You want to screenshot a card and have it sent to you? Nah, that's obviously a fish. Okay. So, in China, there was this person that got sent an email. They're like, "Hey, we have to do this major transaction.
Oh man!
And we need to move $25 million." And they're like, "Whatever." They're like, "We are going to have a virtual meeting to do this."
Huh?
So they're like, "All right." They step into the meeting, and they have multiple people in this meeting.
It's like the CHRO and the, you know, like all of these CX, like all of the people in there, and they deep faked all of them.
They deep faked every person in the meeting, and they got this person to transfer $25 million because they deep faked the CFO. They deep faked all of the people. In this particular instance,
those couldn't have been great deepfakes, right?
They were so convinced because they did the deepfakes on the faces, on the voices, and they were able to do the entire thing.
And I guess over like Zoom, you could lower the resolution of everyone too, right? Like I would think that would help. You'd be like, oh, everyone's at 480, yeah, you know, the internet or whatever. You would just assume it's like something like that. But it would help hide some of the AI-ness of it, maybe even. I could totally see that.
But they were suspicious already because they received message from the CFO. But when they like put the site, because they went in a video call, and then the attendants and looked and sounded like the colleagues that he recognized, the people that he went in. So like this is the future. We were saying like this is how are you going to know reality versus nothing. So my point is,
I'm gonna have to get a blood sample for every meeting that I go to.
We were talking about this from an education standpoint, is that maybe you don't turn in papers and you have to do verbal kind of like presentations,
Right.
and like you have to say it all out loud.
Yeah.
And it's going to be harder.
You're like, I'm gonna have to look the CEO in the eyes before I transfer $25 million to
I know.
anywhere.
And yes, I would say you put in the effort for 25 million, try to deep
Right.
fake a bunch of stuff, and you go into there and you get that. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, to get $25 million, right? Worth the effort.
All right. Well, next project on Double Drop
Yeah.
Down.
Well,
deep
did
fakes.
you see that, like, the Biden deep fakes, like,
yeah.
of his sending out, like robocalls basically, and so that's part of the story, like, coming up is like how to crack down on that stuff.
All right. Quick takes next. What do we got next on there? So I guess maybe the wrap up on that one is that we're just going to see more of it. It's going to be, it's like, how are you going to trust anything anymore?
Yeah,
and you said this, like, this is election year.
Right.
What the hell's going to happen? We're already getting it.
Well,
we're getting 25 millions from this.
Yeah. Well, so that rolls straight into the perfect roll in for this next story. Like, this is basically came out this week. Like, Meta did it at the beginning of the week. Google, just did it today or yesterday, basically talking about, hey, like, this is an election year, right? I'm sure that is not like lost on anyone, but basically, like, yeah, you don't have to add it to there, but like, basically Meta and Google went and said, yeah, we're going to start policing, like, and showing people, is this some sort of AI generated content on there? And they talk about almost like it has it as a, nutritional label, right? If you think of like a nutritional label on like a can of peas, it has, here's everything about it, here's where it's from, here's what levels, what minerals and vitamins it has in it. Whereas this one would have like, here's where it came from, here's what percentage of it maybe is AI generated. And obviously they just don't want to get sued. They don't want to get sued, or they don't want to also have like everyone yelling at them for the next 4 years because like some viral clip of Joe Biden or, Donald Trump goes viral that is AI generated and spreads all across their platforms and they can't do anything about it. So this is them sort of figuring out 9 months in advance how we can step in and do that
and mark those things. And
yeah,
in the chat, I appreciate that, Talon. It's like, even before deepfakes, we have been approaching the death of truth. So consider how many flat earthers on there. What are you talking about, man? The earth is flat.
You're like, you didn't realize that
Come on.
You should see the tags in Twitch. This is also a flat earth
But I
podcast.
think this is also a systemic issue from like just having this connectivity across the board.
Yeah.
A lot of people that had these weird kind of outward things. Yeah, unfollowed blocked. Trust me, we know the earth is not flat. It's clearly an oval that's flat.
It's a hexagonal.
Yeah. But no, so yeah, I think that's a good point, is that we just keep going towards this thing where we're not able to trust anything anymore. And
yeah.
So how do you do that? Google and Meta putting, like, I'm interested to see how this works. Is it in the Google search and like when it shows up on
things? Is it like an overlay over the top of it? Are they like watermarking images and stuff with them? I don't know. Like, they were talking about going in and talking with Adobe, right? And doing the same sort of thing and coming up with some sort of watermarked like system, or that's what OpenAI was saying.
Right.
And I don't know if they meant like the digital watermarking, like we talked about like last, in the last time with what was the software that Disturbed had put into the Discord?
There was a single name. It was
I can't
Craze
remember.
or Flaze or Jays.
Something.
Glaze.
Glaze.
It was
There
Glaze.
we go. and so they have like watermarking that's done in sort of like so you can't see it visually on the screen. It's not like splashed across the middle of it.
Right.
It's like built into the file and the way so that when other files read it, then they can see the watermarking. And I would love for it to be something like that, where everyone could just say like, no matter who grabs it, you could always look at it and be like, this shit is half AI. Like, get over yourselves.
What's funny is like in couple years, everything's gonna just be that. Like,
that's true.
It's
right. Yeah, exactly. I did a whole bunch of LinkedIn posts and things like that for my job, and was like, hey, these are all Google Dolly images that I use for thumbnails and all of that stuff. Okay, next topic.
Next hot topic. What are we talking about? That this house does not exist.
This is another New York Times article that I just thought was fun. It was basically talking about the idea of like AI generating these like tiny houses or big magnificent houses, basically just the idea of that it could like build whatever, and it getting this huge following of people who would almost be in the same boat as people who would watch kind of like like videos or stuff like this old house, right? Or
I know what you're talking about. Like when you go in and they're like selling houses and they're like
or
doing
like
the flips.
yeah,
Flip my house.
exactly. Reality shows like that. That's what I was looking for. Reality shows of doing that. And so they were like, oh, it's really nice. Their thing was like, oh, it's almost because housing prices are so expensive. It's almost like like what would I design my house as, right? If I could do that, or judging what would I like of a house that does this. And to me, the optimistic side of it, go ahead.
All right, we're on an ad break right now.
Well, whatever. Like they can see it up in the corner. So this website specifically, you just click the picture and it just generates new types of houses and cozy nooks inside your house. And the optimistic side of me went, how cool would it be if in the future you could just sort of generate a bunch of ideas and then be like, great, now 3D print me that house, right? Like at some point it'll get to that where you would just say like, wow, look how interesting that is. And it's on a hill like this. And like, great, that's how I want my house to look. And then everyone would have these custom everything houses.
That's Santorini. That's a Greece. That's like almost like that's a real almost place, but it's fictional. So help me understand this, because I guess I'm still not tracking. This site that we're looking at right now, all of these images are AI. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
And so what it's doing is just generating versions of houses that you are able to go in and can you look like this one right here, that pool? That pool looks a little
it's a very shallow pool.
So do you go in and you generate this?
You don't do any of that stuff. It's basically like an Instagram feed, right? of like, here's some crazy different types of houses.
That looks like a terrible house. It's like a beach under here.
It's just a beach that heads out. But like, I like that in the sense of like, wow, it's trying different and unique things, right? It's like, here's a stick house on the beach.
That looks terrible. It's a terrible house.
You're like, I do not want that beach house. You're like, high tide.
Polished bamboo and bajuka wood. What the hell?
I think it's just adding a bunch of words together, right? And just giving you ideas. But I do think at some point when 3D printing and all of that stuff, I feel like you're going to have more customized houses and you'll be like, great, hey, that looks like a super sweet, tree house or kids playhouse for my backyard. Go ahead and 3D print me that thing and put the lights where they need to be so it looks like that.
I mean, it's cool.
It's cool. I just thought it's like a fun little diversion.
It reminds me of the one that we had before. It's like, this is Adam, our future house will not be 3D printed.
You say that now.
Yeah, that's true. Unless it has some like, hey, here's my pitch. What if it was a huge studded Starbucks cup house? Come on now. You'd like it.
Custom everything.
Custom Starbucks house. You'd be in on that. Shiny and glittery.
I do think that we're getting more towards a place where you will not just have one sort of layout of your house. Like new houses will be more custom than they are right now. And you might be AI generating those.
Well, and I like the idea that it's like not this cookie cutter piece, and because I think the challenge before is it's a fiscal issue. It's like, hey, we can make 20 of these houses in a row, and we do it the same way.
And they got to be square because wood is square. It's like cut in square spots. But if you're just 3D printing everything, you're like, oh, now it's like a hobbit hole in the side of this mountain and built in with the layer. Because it's like, who cares what it is shaped like? It could be shaped like anything.
I like it. I like the idea.
Yeah.
So
I can't wait for that. A 3D printed treehouse in my backyard, please.
Just as a side note, we've had this conversation on the Hangout before, is that 3D printing houses is not a new concept. It was done back in like the 50s. The 50s! And they had a mechanism of being able to like put things down, and it wasn't necessarily the easiest way. But I love the idea that now we can get like way more custom and cool. And
yeah, we'll see. I mean, we talked about 3D houses in previous shows and stuff like that.
All right, next up, what's our next hit?
Last one. I think this is the last one, right?
Yeah.
So Really, this was about like a new study came out, and it's looking at like where is the future of AI disrupting work inside of, you know, our organizations. And it was like, okay, we looked at like where AI is going, we looked at all of these different factors, and we were like, these are the areas that they feel are going to get most impacted, most disrupted by the new level of generative AI. And like we have said before, like a lot of technology that comes up ends up impacting blue collar jobs, right? Like robots and factories and all of that kind of stuff. And this report is saying that like it's going to be these really high end white collar jobs, like, you know, thought job, like, you know, that don't take, you know, backbreaking work. It's more like jobs, white collar jobs. And so like some of those are marketing managers and software developers and lawyers and business analysts and you know, people with college degrees are going to be the ones that are affected by this. And I just think that is such a shift on how typically like things get disrupted, right? Things got disrupted with electricity and we sort of moved from the farms into the cities, right? And then things got disrupted with computers and we sort of moved from everyone doing things analog to everyone doing things in computers. And that always like seems to take out like lower and, you know, blue, like that lower level of that. And the more education that you have, the better off that you are. That is just kind of the general rule of like what has happened. And I feel like this absolutely flips that on its head. And I wonder just what that looks like in the future if this ends up being true.
And so what you got is this article with some research, right? Based off of some findings on where we think this is going.
This is a New York Times article, and it you know, it basically just like talks to a bunch of different people who are like who have done research in this field, and that's what their conclusions were. Now, we never know where any of this stuff is going to go because 2 years ago they probably would have said something completely different, right? Because the technology changes. But I just think it's like an interesting thing to think about, like where do regulations come from? Who are like government things and people with lots of money want to protect? And so then does more regulation show up around it? Are all of these things were like, no, you got to lock it down because I'm the one paying for your political campaign, right? My white collar, you know, donations are going towards that. How does that change?
We saw this last year. I think we got to experience the golden age of like AI
right.
initially. I remember having really crazy conversations with AI initially, and I was like, this is amazing. But then I was also nervous because I was like, I'm gonna lose this cool like way to interact. When I was on ChatGPT, outside of some of the show things, I went deep and weird and crazy.
Right.
And like, it gave me some good responses that went way deep and crazy and interesting. And so what I'm starting to see now is everyone's like, whoa. We cannot give that to people.
Right.
We need to keep that for like the military and all of our other bullshit behind the scenes. So let's nerf this for everyone else.
Yeah.
And
so that it's not like teaching you how to make, you know, napalm in your basement too.
It wasn't even that. Like some of the stuff, it was just
I wasn't thinking you were looking up how to make napalm in your basement, but just like on those outer pushing the limits of the things that it would do. Right. Yeah.
yeah
dude, totally. We are all in like the you know, mind work, right? Like no, like I, you know, not very many people that I know are like out there digging ditches or using their body to do things. It's all like thought work.
So just an insight tonight. So I was at a mixer event tonight. And so if
work mixer,
if I ever have a chance to vamp on AI, you know, I'm going to be doing it.
Oh man, nice.
So I went with this, it was essentially a chemistry PhD,
Okay.
that I was having a conversation with, and they were talking about AI, and they hadn't got into it. And they're like, I just don't have the time. I don't have the ability
Oh,
to get into
man.
it at this point. And then they went off and they were explaining all these like complex ways that they're analyzing molecules and visualizing them and how they wish they could do this. And so, of course, I went crazy and I was like, you could totally use AI to do this. And like, I gave them some insights of
Nice.
like how it's working and how you might like create a prompt. And I said, it's probably not going to give you the answer,
Right.
but it might give you some ideas on how you'd go towards that answer. And then we started getting into it more. And I was like, and they described a way that they would make some calculations on how these molecules come together. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think AI would give you the answer to that. But what it probably could do is help you build the calculator or the way that you're
Right.
going to do that.
Yeah.
And their mind was like, poof.
That's always fun.
And so it was cool because we started going at it. We started saying, okay, here's how we could approach it from your angle of your research. And I was like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about right now.
Sure.
It's above my head.
Yeah.
But I have the concepts of how we might approach looking at that.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, we ended up spending like 20 minutes going deep on AI.
That sounds like something Adam would do in a mixer.
So what my point would be is that as we start to think of these disruptions, I think those are the experiences that people are starting to get into.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, I'm going to give you one more anecdote.
Sure.
So I was sitting at a basketball practice for my son, and I was just chit-chatting with a guy next to me, and he had not gotten into AI as yet. And
I feel like
I was like, what? And so
when I interact with a person like that, I'm always like, even in my job, like now I'm like, no, you should. This is like,
yeah,
you really like come to a thing. I'll talk to you about it for half an hour. Like you should really.
you need to.
figure that
Well,
out.
but their thing is like, well, I just needed to buy a computer to run it. I'm like, no, you don't need that.
It's in a
He's like,
browser.
I'm getting this what was it, a graphics card, and I was like, okay, yeah, if you're gonna run like Stable Diffusion or your own AI, sure,
Right.
But I was like,
That's
you
true.
Don't
You
need
don't
to
need to
do
do
that.
that.
And so what the funny part of it is that he was like, I was like, you need to go in there and you need to understand it. But this was my anecdote.
Yeah.
He was like, my wife is a photographer and it's going to be so awesome for her career because then she could just edit all her photos and make them look great. And I was like, oh, I can't wait to talk to Ryan about this. Get your hot take on it. So.
I like the idea that you would be like, oh, I'm going to take a bunch of pictures and then just have AI correct them. I feel like that's always the thing of you're like, well, I'm going to take a bunch of shitty pictures and then I'm going to have Photoshop fix them, right? Like it's the same thing that has been going on for years, right? Where you're like, it's going to take my thing and then just like move it into this, new level of it, which I feel like never happens. Like we have talked about for forever. It is a tool that you use and it's part of a thing. Like I was using it. We're going to look at a bunch of stuff in Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator, and all of those things use AI in them now. And it doesn't just, it's not just like putting a sepia filter on something, like you're using it as part of it. And maybe that will change at some point, and maybe you will just take whatever shitty picture you want and, and say AI this picture and it will turn it into something amazing. But like, I don't know. I still feel like it's a tool, and saying it's going to just make it your amazing picture.
It's funny because I love Heather's comment. I love how it blows your minds because people don't AI daily.
Yeah.
And, like
I do, man.
Because maybe it's just where we're at. We're like, this is a major thing.
Yeah.
We're seeing a huge shift
It's
right
just
now.
the public hasn't. We're at the tip of the spear still.
I think so.
I do think if you're listening to this and you're not doing things like that, one thing I would say is I watched a video of like a person who's like brought it into his company and did all of this stuff, and it's like I'll share the YouTube video. And one part that he says is like, if you can't convince people to do it, like maybe it's daunting or something like that to do that. What he said is like, just use it as Google for a week. Mm-hmm. Like, just instead of using Google, instead of clicking on the Google thing and asking it questions or looking up things, just use this instead. And he was like, you'll see them start to figure out, that it's like a conversational model that you're working with as opposed to a keyword indexer.
So you got me onto this, and you said this earlier on. You said this is going to be the new way of search. And I have found myself in so many scenarios where I'm like, I cannot find it. I've tried on Google.
Right.
And I go over to the AI and I'm like, all right, how do you do this? And I'm like, thank you. Yes. You gave me, not only did you give me like the exact answer, but you gave me like 10 other ways I need to think about that.
It's not always perfect, but like it's going in that direction, man. And it works so much better in so many other ways and so many other like, I'm not dragging through a bunch of freaking sponsored links and I'm not going through a bunch of garbage, right, of ads. It's just telling me the thing. It's just as if I asked a personal assistant who was smart but kind of naive and, you know, like nervous, like, what do you think about this thing? And it just told me, right? It wasn't this index thing of advertisements.
I would say you're spot on. And maybe what the sentiment, and I appreciate it, is yeah, there's still big parts of the populace that struggle with Google. Okay, I get that.
That's true.
And you know what? I think we are in this like different mind space. There's people that don't have access to even like broadband internet or any of this, and here we are just like running on it.
Yeah, and being like, why aren't you using AI every day?
Right. Well, and that was what was blowing this guy's mind, is that we've gone through a year of playing with it. So I was explaining how I don't use it. I don't put a sentence and say, hey, write this email for me.
Right.
I use it as a full-on assistant now.
Yeah.
Like I have page prompts that I'll take and chuck in there just to prime it so I can ask my question. So I don't know. It's something that's pretty awesome.
It's definitely become a huge part of my, like as if you were to say, hey, Adobe is shutting down and we're like removing all Adobe products. I would be like, that is going to super screw up my workflow, bro. Like if you were like OpenAI and all these large learning models are going away, I would be like, oh man, that's really going to screw up my workflow at this point. And the amount of time that it took for like that to integrate that quickly into all of the aspects of my life, pretty short.
So I didn't have this on the thing, but it's an AI implication, and I don't want to go too deep into this concept, so because I don't know if this guy wants to talk about it. But I have a friend that I've recently made, and he is developing an app, and I'm gonna get on, and he's doing it very philanthropically. Is
there
maybe
you
the
go.
word.
Yep.
But it's not. It's in regard to women's health, and I don't want to give too much detail just because he has this thing. But the idea is how could he leverage AI to help women understand some specific things that happen specifically when pregnancies are going on. And he identified that a lot of women will either die, or the fetus or whatnot will die, or the baby will die because there's some treatable things that could have happened, but they never went in.
Right.
And they never did the thing. And so he's started to develop this app that takes some details from the day, and you would kind of like ask these survey questions and you get that. And then it uses some AI modeling and some other things that spit out like, hey, you should really go to the hospital at this point to look at this. And here's what these things are indicating. And the example he gave was, you know, there's this mother of 3, and, you know, one of the kid is really sick and she's pregnant or whatever that might be. And they're like, oh, and she's like, oh, I should probably go to the doctor. But then she's like, but if I do, how would I have to watch these 3 kids and all this? I
got to take off work. Like maybe I don't have like a insurance to pay for that. Like there's tons of people that are in that situation.
And so what the cool thing is that he figured out a way, and he has a whole company that he's working with. This is to like take some of the data, then mix it with AI and give some like really awesome ways to like say, you should probably go to the hospital. We think that this is what's going on based off all the data that you provided and what you're trying to say. And the other thing is, this guy's in Texas, so he also had to figure out a way to anonymize the data that's coming in, because he didn't want certain
Texas
things.
Is shitty.
Yeah, and so the point, my point of even bringing any of this up is that we're talking about using ChatGPT right now. You're using the shit out of AI right now.
Yeah.
And you probably don't even know about some of the things you're using. And so, yeah, we're nerds right now because we're using it from a different way that we can palpably like type something up.
Yeah.
But it's pervasive. It's part of what we're doing right now.
It's why people are like, oh, it's bigger than the internet, right? Like it's bigger than, you know, that's why like people in Microsoft and Google like compare it to like fire and electricity and stuff. Like they're not comparing it to social media, right?
No.
Which was a gigantic, huge part that changed the direction of like how we communicated, do everything. But it's like bigger than that. It's like it's bigger than just the creation of the internet. It's like, inventing the wheel or fire or things like that.
It's nuts.
That's why they compare it to those types of things, because it's so reactive. Those were great. Those are great stories from this week.
This is how we do we're doing our hits. We got 45 minutes in. I
Perfect.
think we hit on a good one. That was
totally.
good.
That was like 5 different ones. We had good
so
conversations.
if you have
about
stories, give it to us.
totally. Go to the doubledropdown.com. You could go to the Discord. We have lots of conversations about that. People bringing up really fun, cool new ideas there.
And people will be oblivious to it. And the thing is, it's like that's where I fear is that it's gone so fast.
That's
That's
always my thing. Like, it depends on what the ramp up is, right? If it goes too fast, then you can't catch up. Like, normal people, even us, like, it changes. If it changes too fast, then you can't keep up with it, right?
Yeah, we're not able to get on that. All right.
But we're 1 year in and we're good. So cheers.
So far. Cheers, sir. That white noise, the FCC would have like got on us for that. When I used to be in radio, you're not supposed to have any white noise. And that white noise is like where you don't say anything. That silence.
Like just blank. You can't have dead air.
Oh, we got some ads on. Okay, so we're gonna vamp.
Did I tell you? No, did I tell you that? Well, because it happens for different times for different people. It's not like the ad happens every time. I went into Twitch and I was like looking at the settings, just sort of messing around inside of our channel. And it was like, how often do you want ads? Or it was like, you could increase, you're only getting 33% of something from ads. You could be getting 55%. And I was like, really? What does that mean? Oh, it would be double the amount of ads. And I was like, no, don't do that. In fact, take it down some from what the normal one is. So I set it to lower ads for you all.
Sorry.
Sorry you even get ads.
It's like, we're not trying to make money off y'all.
But like, they won't let you have all the cool like points and bits and all of that kind of stuff if you're not in their partner program.
We're in the partner program. But you know
what?
That
is what it is.
Hey, thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
But I guess if you 100% ads.
You're like, God damn it.
By the way, this is sponsored by the New York Times.
Yeah, right.
And also ChatGPT.
Honestly, right? It feels like it.
All right, Ryan. Are we ready to get in on this?
I think we should do it. I might have to. Do you want to vamp for a minute while I use the restroom? And because I want to be able to like stay for this entire part. This feels like the break. This is the break between news and everything and cool new project that we're working on.
Hells to the yeah. I am so stoked.
I'll be right back.
I am bouncing my leg right now.
Don't like be revealing a whole bunch of stuff and getting into
All right. So here is the biggest reveal. I'm going to go through everything in the platform. Thankfully, we have a bathroom down here, so he doesn't have to walk too far. So I will give you the ramp up that doesn't. We already talked with Ryan and I, so he showed up a little earlier tonight. We were able to have some conversation, but this last week, actually 2 weeks, I had this opportunity to say, all right, fine. We decided that ChatGPT is not going to necessarily build all of our assets in this game, all of the other things that we've been working. Oh, he needs to get the light. Okay, Google, turn on spa. It's called a spa. It's not really great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Google, turn heat to 65%. I don't know. The heat came on. It's a little hot in here. Anyways, 2 weeks ago, Ryan and I decided we're going to build a video game. We had been doing this this concept of building a video game. It started 13 years ago. I'm going to be completely honest. We had a concept called Skull Bobs. It was 13 years ago this concept came out, and we didn't have kids at the time. Actually, it was right about the time we were having kids. It was before 13 years. It was more like 14, 15 years ago. And we came together, and we've been doing this. The Adam and Ryan, the Hangout, has been something that has been happening outside of streams forever. You just get to get this fun side of it now because that we started this up. But in any case, we wanted to build a sweet video game. But we're going to do it in Flash. We were going to do it in some other program. We found some friends that would be able to help us with this. And so, Ryan, I'm just explaining like a little bit of the history of Skull Bobs here.
Yeah.
And so I think it was 15 years ago.
Man, was it that long?
It was 15 because it was 13 years ago when we posted our first video on episode 0. So that had to be like 14 or 15.
Years before then.
So long story short, we got to a point where we had a guy and he was like, all right, we can make the video game. And he made a guy run across the screen. And we're like, oh, we got this.
Totally.
And then we were like, he dipped out. It wasn't easy. It was going to be something.
Totally. Hey, disturbed.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, brother? And so at that point, we were like, man, we really want to build a video game, but we just don't know someone. We don't have the skills to do it.
Yeah.
Let's pivot.
Well, we realized that it would just take way too many. Even at the time, we were doing this all on the side, right? It's not like we were, like we had jobs and we were like, okay, we're doing it on the side. And
yeah,
you couldn't build a video game at that time on the side, right? It was programming, it was a lot of stuff, and even with the help that we had, it was like too daunting of a task.
And it wasn't just like, it wasn't in our bailiwick to move that forward. So what we pivoted to was like, okay, we have this story we want to tell.
Yeah.
And it's the story of Skull Bobs, and we'll get into this. That's what we're going to do this year.
Yeah.
And so we made some sweet video. Like, I spent a year building just a platform to be able to do the damn thing. And so what ended up happening is we created some episodes. We created like a six episode story arc.
Yep.
And then I think at that point we got episode 00, which was our teaser. Yep. We built in an episode 1 and we had the whole story.
We had an animatic for episode 1. So an animatic is like animated storyboards, basically, not fully animated, but fully like cut together.
And what ended up happening is, and we're not gonna watch this. We showed this on the stream before, and you can't even see what I'm doing right now. But we created this animatic, and I'm gonna chuck it in. And this is not the animatic, actually.
No, this is the full, actually fully animated episode 0.
We have 6 subscribers on this site, but I think you posted. Oh, that's loud. We're not gonna watch it, but we posted it on your other site, so you got some views on it from there. But any case, I think I had kiddos at that time. That was around the time that happened. Then you started to have kids, and we were like, all right, hiatus. Right. Hiatus. I remember the word hiatus.
You're like, hiatus was used, my friend. It was not canceled, or quit.
15 years later, here we are on the Hangout.
Technology caught up. We're like James Cameron with Avatar. We're like, I had this idea, but the technology was just not there to realize it, and now it is.
So here's the deal. We're gonna finish the story of Skull.
Yeah.
Bobs.
Well, so I would,
go for it.
Like, I did have an idea of like, let's say you took episode 0. And you're like, what comes forward of episode 0, right? Like, use episode 0 as the prologue. And then what is the storyline that goes into that? Because we're going to have to having a video game storyline and a animated short storyline, like, they have to be different, right? Like, you have to, like, in a video game, you have to be killing tons of enemies all the time, right? Like, there has to be a whole bunch of enemies for you to be able to be like,
could be
hitting and doing
RPG
stuff, like, I guess. But like, if we're making a Metroidvania game, there are a bunch of enemies to be shooting and getting around. And so in that sense, it has to be kind of like, you have to be getting a bunch of different weapons, right? And transversing a bunch of different areas. So I do have an idea of like how that could, how the story could like come forward. I have thought about that. But like, anyway, I do feel like at this point we are saying we're going to try the Skull Bob storyline for this Game Boy game. And then maybe if we want to move on after that or do something, but it feels like we need to square that circle, right? Or like
100%.
finish that.
We gotta close
line.
this out. Yeah. So maybe we go 6 months, maybe we go even a couple months, and we have the Skull Bob story, and we release it on Game Boy Studio, and we're like, man, I think we can take on something else.
Right.
We should do that. So, without further ado, what we're gonna go through is what have we been doing for the last 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I did, and this is not what I hadn't had a chance to tell you, and I've been like, beaming to tell you about this, Ryan.
My chair is touching your chair, and I could feel your leg jumping.
You can feel me
like,
bouncing.
I could feel like it's odd.
So here's the story. So up until this point, I had been building a Game Boy Studio game. It was a
GB Studio, right? We use
Studio,
GB Studio as a platform,
which is Game Boy Studio.
Yeah.
And just the quick history on that is that it's. I don't even feel like I should tell the history.
It was created at a game jam, basically for funsies, and then some people were like, "Hey, it's fun to make Game Boy games out of this," and so a giant community built up around it, and it's open source.
And they use Game Boy jams for it now. They still have these jams, and jams are basically you make a cool game in like a weekend, and you submit it, and you get
cool
up to there. So I got the platform. And I've been playing with it all the way up until we made this decision. Hey, we should probably make a Game Boy game.
Yeah.
But what I did is I took the original like example games that they gave, and I started tweaking them. And I was like, oh, I could tweak the pixels on this, or I can like change this code a little bit.
That feels like
and
how
it
you
does
start,
something.
right?
So 2 weeks ago, after we decided, I was like, I had the oh shit moment. I was like, oh man, all right, we're gonna attack this. I need to start learning GB Studio because I'm going to be the one that's helping with some of the code, and I know you will as well, but I was like, I really need to dive deep because we're not going to be able to do this.
Right.
So one day, I just like cracked the fingers. I had a weekend day where I was like, I am going to sit down and figure this out, and this is what I did. I opened up GB Studio, and I said, screw the platform, and I opened it blank. There was nothing.
Oh, right. Like screw starting from, the template or something like that.
Yeah, and so it was 2 weeks ago on a Sunday, and I said, all right, let's see if I can make a guy run left and run right on the screen. That was my only goal, my literally only goal. And then I had the time blip. There was 6 hours later, and I was like, what?
You're like, and it's dinner. And,
no, this is what it was. As I started late in the evening, and I had to be up early that next day, and it was 2:30 when I looked at the clock.
Nice.
I was like, holy crap, I've been doing this.
Love
and
that.
So here's
Love those moments, right?
It felt so good.
Yeah.
And so I got into it, and that's why I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I built.
Okay.
And then we're going to dissect it. And then we're going to start looking at, and there's some errors and some issues with what I built. And I purposely left them in there. And I tried to not like go too far because I wanted Ryan to be part of this. And I wanted to be able to say, hey, I did some stuff, but this is what I was able to produce.
Yeah.
And now we're going to use this as more of a framework. So even though it says Skull Bobs, this is not Skull Bobs. This is not the game. It is basically a prototype of us understanding the game mechanics and me just being able to learn the damn thing.
Well, and I feel like it's timing in things. How does stuff work? Does this how do enemies, how do we interact with them? How does the how does any of the elements show up on the screen basically at this point? And then 100%. At some point we'll be building AI assets and stuff like that, which we'll talk about it towards the end of the show.
100%.
Yeah.
And one of the things too is I was like, if I can get enough of that, like, and we said this before, if you get that 15 seconds of fun,
right,
and we can figure out just like, here's the basic game mechanics.
Yeah.
The rest of this is story and the fun parts of building a game. So I was like, how far can I get it? So first of all, what you're seeing on the screen, I built that all with pixels. I sat there and just there wasn't a font or anything. That's Adam just putting pixels on the screen to make everything you see.
Wow.
So every single thing you see is not an asset that I got from anywhere other than my own brain clicking out on it. So
you wrote "find the windscreen."
I wrote "find the windscreen." I did all of the things with a sprite, which is a tool, and because my goal was, I was like, can I do everything from graphics to the coding all in like by myself? So I started with a literal blank screen, and this is what I came up with. And I'm not saying it's like groundbreaking or anything. So some things are built into the platform in the engine, so that like this little screen was built in. I didn't have to go and pixel those things in, but essentially it's a save screen. So if you were to say continue, nothing to load here. Find us on Double Drop 10.
Okay,
shameless plug.
There you go.
But like, I just wanted to see, like, can you make the screens? Can you do the things? And so here's the game that I was able to create. So I got this little guy. So I succeeded in my goal of making a little guy. Terribly. He looks like he's like flopping
he's very
his little
spindly.
He's like, oh, look at me.
He's like E.T.'s dad running around.
But I'll show you why I made it, because I was looking at optimization. We have 4 megabytes to work with to make this game.
Every single asset, every single thing needs to fit inside 4 megabytes.
And even on this screen, we need to be able to do things. So the first thing is, let's see if we have some audio. I want to, let's see if we can hear. Okay.
Oh
I died.
God, it blew up.
So I did that on purpose. And what that is that this is an enemy that I created, which I'm going to consider it's my landmine that I made.
Totally.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get us through this, and I'm going to show you some things that you're going to see here. Oh yeah, he's gotten a little different. He's a little cute guy. So first of all, one of the things, it's going to be loud. I had to animate that, by the way, and make that and figure out how it's going to explode it. So this little guy, if you look at his legs, and actually it's my old version of his legs, you'll see, but watch, he's not going to touch me. First glitch I found, and I didn't tell you this, is that the only way that you lose this game is by you losing it your damn self, because I didn't make the AI guys so they bump into you. If you stay still, they'll never touch you. They'll never touch you. So we got to figure that out. But there's some ways that we can get around it. But so if you're trying to jump over this guy, you got to just be careful. And like if you stay still, and this is a glitch, then you won't be able to do that. So I created these little areas, and we're going to show you how all of this comes together. So there's a little ladder, and I had to make the little guy crawling up the ladder.
Sure.
When I'm going to walk into this, look at how he has nothing in his hands. But then when he walks into it, he picks up his little gun. Oh, shit, he drops it. And the reason why is I was trying to figure out, like, how can you get a weapon and how can you, like drop a weapon? Yeah. And so what you're about to see is my, like, 4 or 5 development phases linked together into a mini game is what you're getting. Yeah, and so if you go back up here, you can get your gun
now because you grabbed it from the shelf,
and so I can shoot enemies, and so it only has a range. Like you can't shoot and see where it kind of stops. So you have to be up on him, and then I shoot him, and the screen shakes, and he dies, and he disappears. And so the point was like, how can I make this? And if you're wondering about the background, why does it look like these little plus signs and dots? That was my little grid. So it's a 16 or a 32 by 32 grid. So that I just knew where like spacing was, so I could figure out like how far can he jump and how can he do this.
Oh, new enemy.
And I'll talk about my little Game Boy. I made that guy. It was it was fun to do. So what I'm going to do is this little level was you're trying to basically escape it. So you start in the lower right corner and you get to the upper right corner and you're able to escape. So what I'm going to do is this is one of the ways you can get out. You can jump up this way and you jump up through the floor and there's a little bomb.
There we go.
But the other way you could have done it is if you had platformed over to this area, you can get up to this guy and you can run over this direction.
Yeah.
This was my first 6 hours.
Yeah.
I got this done in 6 hours.
Nice.
This was the first version. This was my next step of like, how does it transition to a scene? And if you go into it, this guy, if he touches you, you don't die. You just get you get called a loser. And so I hid in this little corner. Every time you touch him, he's going to say loser. And it just keeps, but if I go in the corner, I have a little hit box where you get the gun. And you can shoot it.
I see.
So it's a little thing. Now, if you look at the screen, can anybody see anything that you might want to explore? So end? Question mark? What would you think about that? What do you see on the screen that you might want to go towards?
Those weird boxes in the bottom right?
So there's some boxes in the right. Those are the colors. That was a color scheme, so nothing goes there. Oh, Michael sees the smiley. Heck yeah, you do.
No, so, smiley over here.
Yeah, so I go up here, and then you go and you walk on the end, and you can get to the end. So first version of the game is if you go to the smiley, hooray! You have won the game. So that was the first way that you could win.
That's a win.
The game
condition.
But what we're gonna do is we're not gonna just be okay with that because we're gonna start. And so here's my.
You're like on the win screen.
I know. I made it like cute.
Fun.
Like you do that, and then if you fall off, you restart the game.
Okay.
So I tried to make a whole experience out of this damn thing. So sorry for the loudness of that, but what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take the other route and see if I can beat my own game. I've played this like a lot, let me tell you. So I know that I need a gun. Yeah. So if you just pause, you'll be able to not do that. So if I go up here, like this little, rage played it. I love that. So I can't get past that guy.
Oh, I see.
So one of my I was trying to actually make it a challenge.
Yeah.
So if you get past this guy, you can get your little
over him.
little gun over here, and I did make it to where it would be frustrating. You're like, you can't get up to this platform. It looks like you can, so you have to
you gotta
jump it up
over. Okay.
and then of course
I had a hard time with this jump.
So what I got to figure out, and what we got to figure out, is how do you get that little jump to happen, and then you go into here. So everyone saw you can go into the windscreen. Good look on that, Mike, because that was the secret. So everything you saw up to this point was multiple versions of development that I did. The first one, can you get a guy to run? Got it to happen. Then I was like, shoot, can I push myself further? Can I get him to hold a gun and shoot it? Sweet, got it.
Right.
And so right now, if I hit up on this, let me go get my gun. If I hit up, nothing happens. If I hit left and right, I can go back and forth and I can shoot, right?
Yep.
So then I created this other screen that has some things that are on. And so this is when I was started to push it. And I was like, all right, I got the guy to run. I got the guy to be able to shoot his gun. I put an up shoot. And so there's some challenges here. So if he's going up and you hit back down, now he's floating a little bit weird. I put a duck in.
Okay.
And so he can
and so it's different for this, the mechanics are different for this screen?
For this particular screen, I loaded it so that I could say, I can make him duck, I can make him look up, I can make him look left and right. And let me explain these 3 boxes. So first of all, if I jump into this box, it will restore all my health points, which are my upper left.
Okay.
If I jump into this one, this was more of troubleshooting. It would tell me how many hit points I actually have in a variable. We'll get into that in a second.
All right.
And then this one, it will respawn all the enemies on the map, and there's 11 of them from the upper left hand or upper right hand corner. So at this point, one of the other things is if I go into this little bomb, notice my health points went down from 6 to 5.
Right, you didn't just die instantly.
You didn't die. So I was like, how can you get a little bit of health? And then these little guys, and I'll talk about the AI I wrote for him to do all the things he's doing. They were originally just supposed to be a dummy that just sits there and doesn't do anything. I was like, wait, I probably could write a little AI script for that. And so here's the point, is that if I go through my little grenades, they explode.
You only got 6 left.
And so I have 6 enemies left, and I got to get this guy, try to shoot him. And so when he hits you, do you see that little emote that comes out of his head? That's that was another indicator that I was working with. And then, did you notice when it explodes, it shoots you up?
Yeah.
Now these guys are having some cavorting. I don't know what they're doing right over there.
They got stuck on each other.
They did. I will have to troubleshoot that. So I'm down to 2 enemies at this point, and I have 3 life points that are left. So if I can get this guy, now look in this upper right hand corner. This is another thing. I was like, how can we make doors and stuff? So I go to the door. It's only 2 enemies left, which goes to those numbers. Everything's working well, and so let's kill this guy if we can. Oh God, he's a little Game Boy if you didn't know.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Nice.
So we got one more guy left, and so there he is. Shoot you. So that's where I want to put the duck. So now it turns into a little skull.
Nice.
So if I were to come over here, and I'm not gonna, if I jumped up into this, all the enemies will respawn.
Right,
We don't want to do that. If I jump in here, it'll tell you I have 3 hit points left in the upper left hand corner.
Okay.
It tracks. That's good. So if I jump into this, hit points come back.
Yay.
So it's just me testing.
It's like a the save point where it comes around you and says, "Oh, now you have all your hit points back."
And if you notice the door, and we didn't get to see it, but the door opened.
Oh, right, yeah.
And now you go in and you get your windscreen
Yay.
again. So there you have it. That was what I was able to create.
From nothing to that.
From nothing to that. So I want to just unpack that because I was excited. That was fun.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I'm going to be some genius game developer, but I was able to come up with that from scratch.
Right.
So now it's
pretty
time
good
to dissect.
Yeah.
What the heck we
exactly
needed to do.
What went into making the Skullbob's Adventures what it was?
Yeah, and so here's the fun part: is you have some sprites, and I almost feel like we should look at those in just a little bit. Let me dissect this. I don't want to go too vamping and crazy on what I did.
But I feel like even showing the screen will be will be a big part of it.
All right, so I'm putting that wrong screen up. So here we go. This is GB Studio.
Yeah.
And what you have here is the platform that we're able to build all these things on. And so everything you saw was just pixel generated art. And then what we're able to do is put these like layers on top of that art to make hits and things that happen. And so we can even do this in real time, and I'll show you just some examples of what you can do. So when we start this game, and I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you can kind of see, and this, Ryan, this is me also helping Ryan understand how we're going to do these next steps,
right?
Is that each one of these blocks is those screens. So you didn't get to see it, but it loads our little logo, and then it kicks over to a title screen, and then it jumps into this area. And there's actually even an area we didn't explore that I was in there. But you have all these different screens, and if I clicked on one of them, you're going to start seeing some linkages of like, hey, if you spawn into this scene, if I go up to this one, you should spawn into this upper right-hand corner.
Right.
And then like if you go down, if you explode and die off of this, he's going to go back here. And so it starts to build all these different ways that you interconnect these different screens. So this is the one I started with. But what I'll do is I'm going to start over here. If I click on this screen, off on the right-hand side, you start to see all of the things that you can select and what you can do. And so essentially what I was saying is, hey, the background for this scene should be this other thing.
I know, right? Yeah, I have played with Mario Maker before. That's a fun way to do it. So this one has these like background palettes added to it, right? Because it's purple at this point.
So what I tried is, and that was part of my testing, is that I can go here and I turned. Oh, actually, I want to show you something real quick before we go here. So there was a moment in this last week I was like, we're not going to be able to make a game in GB Studio. I said, it's not going to happen. And let me show you why. Is that if I go into the settings here, there's an enable color mode. So if I turn that off, what we're doing is we're going back to just a original Game Boy game. Notice
which
there's
only
no
has
colors.
like 3 or 4 color palette.
But the problem is that the difference between an original Game Boy and Game Boy Color was some of the processing power and the ability to do some of the work. And so what I'm doing is I click in this upper right-hand corner, and you'll notice that it's going to spin for a second. So it's actually compiling the game. If I were to actually go over to this build, it would tell us what we're doing. You can see it's like compiling all the components and putting it together. It's building our game as we go. So what you're going to see is, in just a second, it's going to load the game in the original Game Boy format. And you're going to see how laggy as crap this thing is.
Man.
And I was like, there is no way. We'll only have one enemy. It's going to be terrible.
Right.
And so that was my challenge. And I was like, can I optimize this? And that's when I started optimizing things and trying to figure out, can we like reduce sizes? How can we make this work? And when I found, and then I did a little research and like, hey, if you turn on the GBC, which is Game Boy Color, it gives you a little bit more processing power, and you have the cooler color palettes. And things you can do.
So like literally, is that hardware differences between the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color, and that's what it was adding, right?
And so as this builds, original Game Boy, Game Boy Color. So generally the same size, but the hardware in the
smaller.
It's I would say the screen size. I was saying like it's about the same, but you get a little bit different color and a little bit different processing that happens between these two devices. And so actually I've been playing the game on both of these original devices. So let's see here. It's finalizing the last part of this, and then just going to spit out the game, and you're going to see how laggy the game is. We're not going to play the whole thing in versus the one that we just did.
And what makes it lag? So like, how did they couldn't? It was original Game Boy games. They were just like, oh man, you can only have like one moving enemy on the screen at a time,
so GB Studio, and this helps answer that question, like sits on top of multiple layers of how you could build a Game Boy game. If you really wanted to build it from like how it was done back in the day, you build it like in the assembly language.
Oh man, right.
And then on top of that, you could build it with C. And then on top of that, there was this Game Boy like visual what was that, Visual Maker something, and then Game Boy Studio sits on top of it. And so Game Boy Studio, we couldn't exactly recreate some of the games that we saw back in the day because it's a little limited in some of the things it can do. But what the takeaway was is that it's also made it very accessible to make games,
Sure.
and they've upgraded it enough that it's pretty awesome. So if I go back to the screen that we were just at, this is the Game Boy original version of it. And so I just wanted to show you how laggy this would look. So first of all, it seems like it's okay right now. But then when you start getting close, well, it's actually not running too terribly right this second. But as you start to get close to like multiple enemies on the screen, you're going to notice that like the lag, and there's no cool colors that we get.
Right. That's definitely true.
You know what? This was after I optimized it a little bit. So maybe I optimized it a little bit better. So that's actually a positive to know that my optimization has been working. Because my original sprite character was a lot big. Oh, there, you saw it right there.
Yeah.
Like you would find this so much more, the little lag in this version, that as I started playing, I was like, it's done. We're not going to be able to do it. It's like right there. I am super lagged out right now.
And it's like a pretty simple scene, it feels like.
Terribly laggy.
Yeah.
So the point is that if I back out of this and I go back into our game world, there's this whole settings screen that allows you to adjust the engine itself. So first of all, I turn on the color mode. Now that's saying you're building a Game Boy Color game.
Yeah.
And you have all these additional sprites or colors that you can do.
Super Game Boy.
And so that's for the Super Nintendo.
Oh, nice.
I actually have that thing where you can shove a game into a Game Boy game into a cartridge and then put it in a Super Nintendo and play it in a Super Nintendo.
Nice.
So you can build it for that. Cool. But as you start going down this list,
does that give you more power?
Not. I don't think in that one it does, but it's almost like a Game Boy Color game. But as I start going down this list, it starts to show here's how the engine works. So we are building this out of a platformer. Mm-hmm. So if we wanted to adjust the run velocity or the walk velocity, like how high do you jump? What's the gravity like?
Yeah.
We can adjust all these things. What button does what?
Yeah.
And we can do it for different engines. And engines might be like shoot 'em up or a top down, or if you have some other areas here. And it's, used for our brains for an emulator. That's pretty sweet. Here's where the controls come in. Like, what controls do you associate with what keyboard areas?
Yeah.
So you set all this stuff up, and that's what's really fun. And then you jump into the game world and you start building the assets. So we're going to get into that. I don't want to get too much more on all these other pieces. But what I did want to do is I wanted to go to this one of my development screens, and that screen is over here. So this was my development screen.
Okay.
So when I click on the screen, this is going to help you understand how this all comes together.
Yeah.
First of all, you have like a background sprite. So what does the background look like? And that background sprite will dictate how big the scene looks. So there's just a much bigger sprite. And this is just one huge sprite that makes this big like background here.
Yeah.
And so down here, what I was like, I need a little development world. I need to play with that.
Yeah.
I say, here's the development sprite.
Okay.
And then I said, here's the player that we're going to use. So I built that player out. And we're going to talk about that in a second. And then here's all the little like code that builds this character. So what I did is I said, hey, when this loads, attach to the B button an on-press event. And this on-press event is going to allow you to shoot a gun. And so it gives you all these
gunshot. Yeah.
Gunshot, and then I start adjusting like how is it offset from the character? How close is it to this? Okay. And I go in and I start adjusting these things, and it goes down to this other part where it's like, okay, there's collision groups. You can have a collision group for your like low hanging enemies, a collision group for your like upgraded enemies, and all the way up to your third ones. Yeah. So like your second ones, you have to hit them 5 times to kill these ones, whereas your first ones you may only shoot 2 times. So then, really, what this is you're building different pieces to it. And so I attached to the up button. I said if you press and hold joystick up, attach the gun script so that you can shoot things. And then, attach this other script to the A button that allows you. Oh, I guess I didn't do anything with the A button on that one yet.
Yeah.
But you get this idea that you're like attaching little pieces and parts to it. And how it works is I'll say, hey, I want to add an event. In this case, I want to change the scene. what scene do you want to change it to? Okay, I want to change it to the logo scene. And so then you start creating that's how you code in this thing.
Okay. Yeah, like let's say you made it to a certain spot and then it was hit the cutscene. You'd be like, you make it to the certain spot and then trigger cutscene.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to like truncate all of GB Studio without going too much in depth.
Yeah.
But when you see this sprite, notice on the screen there's these little orange things. There's these little like purple deals.
Mm-hmm.
And what the thing is you say, this is a trigger. So you're saying if you touch this, do something, whatever that might be.
Right.
And so each one of these triggers will do something different. So in this particular one, if you run into it, it's going to reset my little landmine, and here's all my code for my landmine.
Okay.
And it will also reset my dummies. So this is all the code that makes this landmine work and all these little guys that I have work.
Okay.
And so what it does is, and if you went into it, I'm like, I don't know, there's a bunch of little code. We can go into depth in that. We'll do that later. We have a year to to do this.
Right.
But if I go to landmine code, for instance, if I open this up and say, what makes the landmine work?
Oh, right. Like play sound effect, disable collisions.
So I'm going to take this little play button, and we can drag this to whatever scene we want. And this is where we would show up so that you can like test a little bit of level. So if I were to hit play, and I'm going to let that run while we're doing this, it's going to load my character, drop it in this scene, and then I can play this scene. So if I jump into any one of these hitboxes, it's going to run the code that's in that hitbox.
Nice. Hold on. I'm going to get a water.
You do that. So as I jump around in this level right here, if I jump into one of these hitboxes, you'll notice that that particular one brings up a little screen. This one will reset the grenade. The grenade explodes if I run into it. The grenade resets. If I shoot one of these little guys, they'll disappear, run back in, it's going to restore those ones. And so for whatever reason, it looks like there's some issues with some of these guys as you're running into it. But the point that I was trying to get with this is that all of those hitboxes or all of these little things run specific pieces of code or do something specific. So Ryan's going to get his drink in just a second, but one of the things that is that barbed wire? Does it look like barbed wire behind it, or when I ran into that other room? It's not barbed wire, but it's like it's a hitbox. So Ryan, I guess I wanted you to understand all of this because I think it's going to be really key for you to understand like how we run this and how this is going to work. So I'm not deep diving, but the last thing that I was going to just say is like if I hit, let me say this box right up here, you'll notice I created a variable of player health. And so the player health should be 6 because that's what I was making.
Sure.
And so what it does is every time I hit this box, it reloads my health, or at least the variable to say that you should have 6 hit points.
Okay.
Every time you touch one of these things, I'm going to show you right in here, is you decrement the player's health by 1. So I put this code on each of these enemies to say this enemy will take 1 health point off. Versus like, let's just say this one, I'm going to change it. Let's see here. Can I change it beyond? It's a decrement by 1. You could put decrement a couple different times, I suppose. I'd have to figure out how to take like 2 or 3 off.
Yeah.
But you'll notice.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So we're at this point right now where you're going to see like each one of those enemies, the grenade, and those little guys running around will remove my health. So upper left-hand side, you'll see this.
Right,
and one goes up. Did you notice how he also bounced?
Yeah.
That's also programmed in.
Nice.
Like all of that shit you have to think about.
Right.
So I created it said, hey, when that thing explodes, do these things in this order so it feels like it's like an animation keyframes, if you will. Yeah. If I run into one of these guys and you have to have the hitbox, it decrements the health.
Yeah.
And so you can keep going. And I didn't make it to where I die. You just like basically get to that health. So I walked out the door. Now I'm back in this level and I'm running around. And I think if I jump back in, I can go back in the room. So let me dissect this just so you could see it because it's kind of cool. So if you take the landmine, skull, that dude,
grenade jumping,
you
I love it.
Okay, just so I did program that in. I just want to show you that. That's why this is up there. You cannot jump and hit this. But I was like, I made a grenade jump. because what you can do is, let's say you decremented your oh shoot, where is that? You decremented your health to the point where you're like, oh man, I need to like have one more health point, and I know there's like a health pack up there.
Right, yeah, because there would just be a sprite that says health pack.
It's like
right?
and so you have to get it right. You have to. Oh man, I'm not doing it good.
Oh man,
shit.
It's
we're
still this is.
I'm waiting too long. Or oh, it's getting a little bit higher that time. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So you could like, so I thought that was
great.
sweet.
Totally.
So you could make these like other little cool
Right.
things, and I just stumbled upon that.
Yeah,
All right.
that's great.
All right, I know I'm getting really
No,
nerdy
this
and
is
exciting.
amazing, Adam. Like the progress is sweet, and like it opens up so many then like possibilities of how to do things or how to make it like all of that
Oh yeah.
like like it starts to be like, okay, if you were going to build mechanics around these things to make a game fun, what would you build? Right now that we know a little bit about
100%.
Yeah.
And so let me show you this, because this was the biggest challenge. I'm full like I did look online for some ideas of other people's enemies. And I was like, how do you approach AI? There was a
Right.
guy that made like some landmine out there.
Okay.
And so I watched his video, I did some stuff, and I tried to do what he did, and it didn't work. It just didn't work. I was like, I did
Yeah.
everything exactly to a step. So I went and said, okay, I got the concept.
Right.
And then I just went and I made my own version of it. And I said,
Nice.
here's how it worked. So essentially what happens is when you first touch the mine, like you have to enable a collision. You have to know that you touched it.
Yeah.
So right when I touch it, I say, hey, disable that, because we don't want to keep having you
Sure.
touch it. So then the next thing is I say, hey, set the speed to 4 of the animation of how quickly that animation, and you'll notice when you get into it, it blinks back and forth. And we're going to go into sprites in a second, because I'm going to segue to you, and it's going to be all about you in a second. And then I said, hey, play a sound effect, beep, at a pitch for 0.2 seconds.
Nice.
Repeated 3 times. So that beep, beep,
Right,
beep, beep, you
yeah,
hear,
yeah.
that hits. And then I say, set the animation speed to 6, speed it up. So it starts
right.
like it's getting a little bit more
Yeah.
intense. And then I say, play the sound effect at a higher pitch. Beep, 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 beep. And so like you have that, like you hit a trigger. And then I say, okay, set the landmine animation, because you can set it. There's a normal mode, and then there's an explode mode I made. And then once it does that, this is where some logic comes in. And I say, if the player was within 2 tiles of this explosion.
Oh,
then,
and that's how it counts, as like those 8 by 8 tiles.
yeah.
Okay.
And so if they're that close, then register a hit point, decrement from those pieces,
Cool.
and then make the hit false again, because you don't want it to keep hitting
Right.
if it's an explosion mode. But if it doesn't have that, it just plays the sound effect, explodes, and everything goes on, deactivated, and it's gone.
Right, and it disappears.
It disappears. So it's like, it's like I said, 6 hours of me
Yeah,
just like
totally.
dicking around
Oh,
with
man.
this. This was like,
I mean, that is like what, almost like 24 different attributes that need to go into making that mine. But then you have a mine that you can use as many times as you want, right?
you
At that
copy
point,
that code.
you just copy that code wherever you want, which is amazing.
and I'm like anal about things. So
Totally.
the first thing I was like, how can I make sure that I can use this code and not have to recode it every time?
Yeah.
And I found this scripts on the left-hand side where I could go ahead and like you make a script. So I made, let's go to the landmine. So I made the landmine code where I can just I can come over here and copy this event and paste this event on all of my
onto a
future
thing. Okay,
landmines. And then I did the same thing with AI. We didn't really get into it. So I have an AI horizontal. So if you want an AI to go left and right, then I have an AI diagonal, and then an AI that just can go everywhere on the thing.
Is that what the little Game Boys do? Are
Yeah.
they like on a random or
I
something?
built the around script. So it basically, I feel like I'm going way too nerdy on this, but I basically said set a variable, and that variable is going to pick a random number. And once that random number gets triggered, it's going to pick one of these options that I've created. And so one of the options is go left,
Move left,
2
right?
tiles,
Yeah.
or right, or up 3 tiles. And you would always go in up and down. Or you can go this way, like -2 tiles, -3
Right short,
tiles. And
left
so
long, yeah.
basically what's happening is this random variable keeps running through, and it's saying make this enemy run this way or this way.
Yeah.
And it's randomly picking it. So sometimes it's
Right.
going to run 3 or 4 or up or down.
Totally.
And so super simple enemy just by basically like having a random variable that shows up to make that work.
Now I noticed like there was one guy at the very top, right? Where he could run past the area that would be like normally he would fall.
Correct.
But I know also at the bottom that they were still confined to areas where there's like a hard stop for them. Is there a difference? And
That's a
obviously
great
we're
question.
getting like too
No,
nerdy there.
I love
but-
that question.
Okay.
So right here, I had use collisions. So there's a hitbox on the enemy. So when it hits into another area where there's a collision, it's like, oh, I can't touch that. I should go the other way.
Yeah.
And so it just kind
Okay.
of bounces between the collisions. So the ones that were running over nothing, they just didn't have
They just
like
didn't
something
have
to collide
something
into.
to stop them. Yeah.
This is why I was going to say, like, this is a test. These are little, like, things we got to fix.
Yeah.
These are all the areas that we're going to come into. So I think I've vamped way too long on this.
no, it's
I-
good.
So what I want to do is, that was the coding side of this. Let's now get to some of the more fun sides of this where like we're actually building the game. So imagine you build this background.
Yeah.
These little things and everything you see on the screen is just pixel art. That's it.
Sure.
It's just a PNG that I load in there.
Yeah.
Then what I do is over on this side, you come up and you have what are called these like, man, I can't remember what they're called. They're like almost hit boxes or things that you would hit on. And I'm opening a sprite if you're curious what's going on right now. And so here, I'm going to get us off to the side. But man, everything is opening up. If I draw on this red line, that is where when you jump on it, you're able to walk on it.
Yeah.
And so we just have to make some really cool art behind the scenes.
Right.
And then you put this thing on top of it to say, hey, that's where a floor is.
Yeah.
Or there's a bunch of different ones. Like if you want to say, here's where a floor is where you can walk on top of it, but you can jump up through it.
Oh, right.
That's what that does that.
Okay.
And then they have a couple different ones. Oh, you want a ladder, huh? Put this ladder code on.
Yeah.
And then
nice.
this is now, of course, this is all invisible. You have
Sure.
to have like I
Right,
had to
a
make
sprite.
a little
Yeah,
sprite
yeah.
ladder to make it all work.
Yeah.
But that's super dead simple to make that happen.
Right.
And then the other thing is you build in actors. So you could say, hey, I want an actor on this screen. And you say, click here. This is the actor I want to bring. And then you say, what sprite do you want to do? Oh, I want a landmine right there. Cool.
Yeah.
There's a landmine.
Nice.
Now this landmine has nothing on it. Has no code.
Yeah.
How do you get it there? Well,
Copy and paste it from that
you-
script
you
or
co-
whatever.
Yeah, you come over here, you copy your event, you click on your script, and you. So I had to find this little thing. You can't paste it unless there's already something in there. So I always just put a comment first, and this little drop down comes in, and I can paste event after. And so
Nice.
there is some adjustment that I need to do. Like when we copy and paste it, I need to get the right variables to like show up, and these are little things we
and
need to work
so
with.
let's say there's a landmine right here,
Yeah.
but there's no floor underneath it. When the level loads, does it fall or it just sits there? It just sits there with nothing.
It sits there unless we built code to say there's some gravity or something.
Yeah, I
on
was
there
gonna
to
say
drop
because
that.
your character has gravity, right? You were
Right.
adjusting settings to say that, but like the physics of the world in the game don't necessarily have gravity.
No, you have to code it on every little item that
But
you get.
but the guy has it. So is it one of those things where you're just like, now I'm just pasting settings onto the thing?
It's the engine. So they're like they figure it's something that you want to have for like your main character. We want to give you all the like ability to adjust that without having to code it. So
Yeah.
that makes it easier and accessible to build a game. But you're going to have to go and figure out your own enemies, y'all, because
Sure.
we're not doing that for you.
yeah,
So
that makes sense.
that's where that comes in.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pause. I feel like I have been chit chatting a lot. Is there initial questions, any thoughts, things that you were curious about? from
No,
that?
well, it always so I feel like one, it goes to show that like even in a simple Game Boy game, like a lot of this is like a complicated set of variables that have to go into things, right? And so I feel like it's great that we chose this for the beginning ones because I'm sure this is the simplest set of variables that you would have versus like a larger game, right? Like on Game Maker or something. The second thing is I feel like I love that you went into the systems of this and started building in some of that stuff, like the HUD and how your player like hit, like points would work and how all of that stuff, because that is so important to actually making like the full. I'm sure like in game development, they have, sections of work, right? Like, layers of work. And there's like, hey, there's the platform side that figures out that stuff. And there's the art side and the story side and the marketing, and all of those levels, right? We're compressing that into two people's work, right? But I feel like we have streams of that, and it's probably like platform and, art or something where we both come together for gameplay.
Hell yes.
and like storyline probably, and writing and things like that will both come together for that. And man, super impressed with the gameplay or the platform side of this at this point. So kudos.
Here's the thing is that I think what have I created right now? If let's say like we were completely, this is all we had to work with, I think we could build an entire story around just
like the level of what it is right now. It just expanded out into a larger thing.
Because the first goal, can I get a guy to run around?
Right.
And then I was like, stretch goal, can I get this guy to like do all the things, and how can I build a HUD? The HUD was my biggest challenge.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
because that's going to be important for the games. Oh, good night.
Have a good one. Hey, check out that game.
Thanks.
If you did. Thanks for hanging out. It was great
totally.
tonight.
Thanks for hanging out. Yeah, I feel like if you like if all we had was this and we just had to pull this out into a larger like screens or you would moving, like I feel like we could do it from there. So that's great for the first 2 weeks. It's very promising.
It's I think we're in a good space. So before we get into the sprites, I think I've explained everything we need to really think about, at least for now. We'll get into this as we go. Underneath here, start to show what our limits are.
Right.
So you can have only a certain number of actors in a scene, which is 10.
Okay.
This is my bear. This is how. Yeah. So there's a sprite of a player on the screen. It's not just calculating just what you see, but it's every frame or every tile within that.
That's what hurts, right? Because then you're like, oh, then you can't have as many tiles inside of there, making it a smooth animation of something, or more complex animations.
So before I like put the kibosh on doing any more so we could talk with you, this was stuck almost, it was at 118, and I was like, we're screwed. Right. I don't know how to do it. So then I started my optimization. I was like, how could I reuse things? I got it down to 55. And so my point is, and if I go back to the sandbox, I've got like this whole one that had all of these enemies here. Look how many enemies were in here. 11 plus the actor. It's still at 55.
Right.
And it's because you can reuse the same enemy over and over, as long as it doesn't
cost you anything.
Doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
And so
it's just unique things. Well, and this is where I will have questions, right? Like that have come up for me around this, like, anyway, we can get into it. But
so let's just look at another part of this, because there's a whole nother world here. The thing that I haven't got into at all is music. I'm just going to say this. You could build music in here. We're going to have to figure that shit out.
Yeah, well, you can download stuff and you can get pre-made things like in file formats that GB Studio will accept, but I don't know how much we're making ourselves necessarily.
Yeah. I don't know. I would love to make this all 100% from us. So here's to answer Mike Zool's thing. So just to take this, like, I literally was an A sprite in this. I don't even know how I did as much as I did of this in the time that I've had. I must have spent way more time than I thought I did, because like even every one of these numbers, I was like, I don't have numbers. All right, let's pixel make a bunch of numbers that looks sweet. And I found a little skull, but I can zoom on this one. So I will. So this is a super important part of what optimization looks like. And I think it answers your question, Michael. I'm going to go to our player sprite. So if I go to the player sprite, what we have, and I tried to keep it as lean as possible. So if I took this like top part of this guy, I could put it on these two things and it would be him here. It would be just a different walk cycle. So the top of him is always the same. Now I have two versions of it. One where his hand's like a little bit floppy and the other
Yeah.
one's not floppy. So here's where the magic happens. Is up here, and I'm going to control Z what I just did, is that this guy is made up of the various parts that come down from here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to recreate it. So if I delete everything there, how you make the frames of your sprite is that you come down here and you say, well, I want this piece and I want it to be here. And I want this piece and I want it to be here. And so you don't have to do it piece by piece. I can come over here and say, like, I want this chunk of my guy to be here. So this is the guy. Now okay, I'm trying to get it perfect. There you go. You drop it in there. Now let's say I wanted him to hold a gun. Oh, here's a gun over here, and then I can bring it up over here, and I can put a little gun in his hand.
Yeah. And so it's almost like the same way that you're tiling things inside of GB Studio and using multiple things, you're building the character out of reusable tiles as well.
100%. Now here's where it starts to get interesting. Is on this left-hand side this is where you get your transformations or animations going. And so first of all, we're in an idle right state. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that your right state is going to just be a mirror of your left state.
So that doesn't cost you.
It doesn't cost you. So they're just going to mirror this for what that looks like. Moving right, though, is you have a couple keyframes. So this is where your keyframes come in. And again, if I took this top bucket, there's the two legs that were different, but how did I get the top in there? Well, I went and picked one of the tops that I wanted to pop in there so I can put it into that space.
So then that's no extra frames. No. You're using the same old ones.
And so that's the whole thing. And the thing is, you always have to do it 16 by 8. You can't do it just an 8 by 8. It's like it always has to be too high and at least one to the side.
Okay.
That's a limitation of the same thing. And so then you create all your things. There's what he looks like at a jump. There's what he looks like in a climb. And then the climb, of course, has two states. It's just like one state kind of flipped.
Yeah.
And so it looks like a climb.
Nice. Thanks for hanging out, Disturbed.
Hey, yeah. Thanks for learning about Game Boy game making.
You know, like watch the VOD to see the end of this. I'm sure. Like.
So as you start to go down this list, I made a crouch state. Hey, what does it look like when he looks crouched? Totally. How does it look like when he's holding a gun? And how does he look like when he's going up? And then the last thing I would say is if you click over here, this is your hitbox.
Okay.
So if you hit into that zone, then you're hitting your character.
I see. Okay.
So that basically sets your sprite up, and then you're able to drop it in the world.
And this whole long piece that it is a part of, any part that's empty of pixels is just like that doesn't count towards anything, right?
Actually, none of this counts. The only thing it counts is what goes into here.
I see.
So you can have a crazy sprite
whatever
down here,
you wanted,
but what pieces you build into the top are where it's going to be a problem. And so as you go down, here's my landmine. My landmine's super dang simple. All it is it's like I tried to minimize as like this side you can always flip to the other side. So I only needed two pieces of it. I needed a black and white so you can kind of flip between it. I only needed half of the explosion because you could always put it on the other side. So here's my explosion. It's basically just this half and then this half.
Yeah.
And then I actually put some pieces in there to make it look like the grenade was exploding or whatever it was.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That
so
makes sense.
That's the fun part. And this is me trying to help you because like I want you to do this part more than me. And then there's the HUD, which was I tried to be like it is literally 1, 2, 3, 4 of those pieces. So 1, and then you could always put like a 2, I don't know. And we can make these hearts. We can make them whatever the hell we want them. But then I can like use these. And you're probably like, how the heck did they show on the thing? So if you're looking up at the top, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
And so I'm just using combinations of these and putting it in there to make it do all of those frames for our HUD.
Right. Okay.
So dummy. This is the little dude. I thought he was cute.
Totally.
He has his little right and there was no really up or down state. But his dead state, I was like, oh, what can you do? And I was really generic with it. All I did was like, all right, well, I have 2 chunks of it, this piece and this piece. And so each time he does it, they just like go into each other.
Oh, okay.
So
nice.
you'll see that they They
No, but
overlap.
okay, so but those count like because they is it because they overlap? Do those count extra?
Nope.
No.
I don't think they do. Well, actually, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't think they
Because it's like physically different pixels taking up that 18 or that 8 by 16 square, right?
Actually, that's a great question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd have to play with that.
Right, because that's where I was like, oh, right, like how if can I overlap things on top of each other?
Yeah.
But if I do that, is that then a different 8 by 16 square that it's now rendering?
I don't know.
You know,
All
all things we'll have to figure out.
At this point, I want to just take like a pause. I feel like I went crazy on it. I'm so excited I got to explain that to you because
so
that was
like,
a lot of
what was the process of doing that? Did you go to a lot to GB Studio, like you know forums and stuff to be like answering questions that you were doing? Were you just sort of like interpreting it, intuiting it with the software? Because I'm gonna have to be in here and doing things like this, inside of this. And so, does it feel like intuitive software that you sort of can figure out? Like,
so. To be completely honest, since I played with it before, I at least had a good lay of the land.
You did,
but I didn't do any of the coding before. That was the first time I like literally. And so I'm gonna be completely honest: is that most of it was trial and error.
Yeah,
like I went in there and I was like, I know basics of coding and variables and things. So I looked online and said, hey, give me an idea on how you build an enemy. And I watched the video and I was like, okay, I get the concept. And then I went and I put the concept back into the thing.
Adam always does his research.
So this is where my life is that when I'm sitting, that's why I don't watch TV. Yeah. Like I have videos that I watch. I was like at basketball practice with a little thing in my ear, listening to how to build AI.
Nice.
So I'm going to do that side. I think now it's time to transition to the cool stuff that you're dealing with, because what I wanted to do is say, like, there's some cool other platforms and other things that we can start working. Now, you said you had a Sprite, but I think I was like, he probably loves Photoshop and he's probably going to use Photoshop.
I will say, so gave a Sprite my $20, downloaded, paid the $20, downloaded a Sprite, played with it for about half an hour and went, why am I doing this in a Sprite when I could be doing this in Photoshop that I know that has like more capabilities than a Sprite does, if I'm going to be honest. And when I was not in the mood maybe at the moment to be like learning a new software, and I was getting frustrated enough with it that went like, I know how to do this in Photoshop. And so use the pencil tool in Photoshop to do everything that I was doing.
So if I can, and then I'll transition to how you want to do it in Photoshop, is that the reason that a Sprite ends up being different is that it limits it, and you actually have layers and you can animate your characters. You can have keyframes in here.
Sure.
So then that way you can like test walk cycles and you test animations. The other thing it does is it does tile-based work. So if you're building a big scene and you wanted to like have repeating things, there's ways that you can tile it, and it just like does all that great.
That's good to know, because like maybe I'll start out in Photoshop or bring things into here, because all it's doing is PNGs too, right? Is that basically what I'm? Yeah. So maybe I can bring things into here and then I can use some of that, because you're right, that would be useful. But just in the moment when I was building things, I was like, I need to be faster to like iterate on this quicker and not get frustrated with it. And so that's where I was using Photoshop for the most part.
Like, this is where I spent my life. I was like clicking little buttons, and you can say, oh, I want this to be like, 1 pixel, and then you have one little pixel. Right. And then what I did is like I just loaded just the palette that I need, because you can only have certain colors in there, and you're able to make this all something. So anyways, it's literally that you're just clicking pixels, and then I made this little grid, and I had a whole bunch of different ways that I made it work. So
nice.
Anyways,
no, I like, it wasn't that I hated it or anything, right? It was more just like, I have only this amount of time and I don't want to like learn an entire, and I was doing things in it, like bringing in reference photos. Like I was doing that inside of it, and I was like, I can't move these reference photos around. I'm sure it was all user error, but I was like, I'm just going to use Photoshop to do things. Okay.
Now it's Ryan's turn.
Well, so I don't think so. Don't even get into the sprites at this point.
Okay.
Let me set this up.
All right. You want me to open it for you? Are you going to talk it about it or?
Well, I don't even know what I'm opening yet. So
Okay. There you go.
So what happened is like, I get in here and I'm like, all right, I need to start building some sprites. Basically, Adam, I've been messing around with using, research on ChatGPT and DALL-E and Midjourney and all of that kind of stuff. And we talked a little bit about that before. But I was like, can I just open like images to begin with?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, nobody's seeing anything right now.
Nobody's seeing anything, but so like,
I mean, you were in that folder. I had you in the folder
right here.
No, you were in there before.
So basically what I did is I was like, well, we know there's going to be pixel art done in this. And I was like, we got to be able to do some pixel art I'm interested in how AI could do pixel art and build, help us as a two-man studio who's doing this in this little bit of their free time to help us get the full amount of art that is going to be needed for this. And I would say that there were some things that it is pretty good at, right? Like I was like, make me just a adventure girl sprite sheet. And, it came up with like that looks pretty cool.
Did you make those color palettes to the left?
Like it always does that. Huh. It always like that must what it thinks sprites are, right? That it also has color palettes off to the side. There just must be trained on data like that, right? And you're like, hey, she looks pretty great, But the problem is like, just like I said before, it's not actually pixel art, right? Like that is not, this is not a pixel art. Like pixel art has to be inside of a pixel and that's it. Right. Yeah. And what this is, and this little line up here and all of that, it's just pretendy pixel art that gives you the illusion, just like ChatGPT. It is such a great metaphor for all of this generative AI across the board is it's the illusion of the thing that you want, not the actual thing that you want. And so and it's close, right? So the problem is like, then let's say I take her and I go, that's a perfectly fine thing. One thing, it's trying to do a walk cycle or something, but her arm, like if you think about when you walk, your left leg goes forward and your right arm goes forward to like balance because basically when you are walking, all you're doing is falling forward and your left leg is catching you and your right arm is balancing out that catch. And then when you fall forward, then again, your left leg is catching you and the opposite. And that's how walking happens. And so this is the opposite. You would fall on your face if you walk like this. But again, this is AI trying to figure it out, right? And so let's say I take her and like, then I was bringing her into like AI sprite, which is now, because right now, if I go back to her.
I like Michael's comment. Technically all pixel art. It's all pixel art because it's all pixels.
You're right. You're right. Well, and that's what I would say here, right? Is the reason this can have this line across here is because this is not a 16 by 16 pixel piece of artwork. This is 1200 pixels by 1200 pixels or something like that, right? So then what happens is when you bring that into something and you say shrink that down to an actual 32 by 32 pixels, it does a terrible job.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Okay. So there were some more things that I tried in this. Come on.
Is this a video?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not opening.
It probably didn't just crash. You just crashed it. No, it's probably. Is it down here? Oh, it's opening in Designer. Interesting. Oh, it's because go on the side and hit just okay. It'll show it in there. For whatever, because it's a web WebP file.
WebP file. Okay. So again, you could see like, I was like, all right, I need like a chibi character, big head, walk cycle. And again, it's like trying, right?
I mean, that one looks like kind of good.
Like
actually.
This looks good, right? Like, But again, it's that pretendy art, you know, like this is not like, look how small this is. She would be 120 pixels, you know, tall, right? So then it would have to go through that whole thing of changing it over and trying to get it, which is, you know,
that's a cool guy.
Right.
I like it.
Yeah. Like, and you know, you can see what it's doing here, right? It's trying to give me the legs of what it
like
thinks.
Sitting.
Like what
that
it
was
thinks
actually
it is.
good. I love how it like had the legs, but not the top. Well,
Yeah.
I guess it's cut off. That's,
you know,
that's
but it,
sweet.
like, it's almost like, again, it's trained on a bunch of sprite sheets that say, I just need the legs, right? Because they're doing the exact same thing you are.
I love that skull guy. That skull guy is so cool.
This
number
little-
two.
number
Actually,
two right
both.
here.
Actually, number one too.
He's
Those
with
look
his tiny
good.
little neck.
They look so good.
Those are fun, right? Okay. So some of what I was trying to do, let me bring this up. I'm going to bring up these screenshots.
Oh God.
So this is me in ChatGPT. And Adam gave me, we met on like the Thursday before this. And Adam was like, dude, you could, if you can't get DALL-E to make you 8x8, you know, or 16x8 or whatever, like graphics, what if it could do it just like plotted out as graphical like elements, because it's so simple, right? And then you could get it. And so I was like, make me an 8x8 grid, and it made this terrible thing, which like looks terrible. And then I was like, no, they all got to be square. I just want them all here, and I want it like to give me individual colors on each one. And it did. And you know what you can tell? Like, this is ChatGPT doing it. It when I say make this, it goes analyzing. It doesn't say creating or drawing or whatever it says when like it switches from ChatGPT to DALL-E. When you say, give me an image that looks like, it goes, okay, that's DALL-E, and it throws it over to that side of it, and it gives you whatever. But right now, we're in mathematics world, right? We're in, this is a grid of colors and stuff that I can figure out. They're all, you know, you don't see any of that bullshitting around and trying to make pretendy graphics in this,
great.
right? So I'm like, amazing. Like, this is great. So I go, now use that 8x8 grid, but instead of random colors, I want you to do an image that looks like a cat. And it goes straight back to DALL-E, right? It goes, okay, you want an image? You want an image? Here you go. Here's your image. And I'm like, no. They can't be broken up. They can't be combined. It's just this grid, no deviations from it. It doesn't care. Like, it's a DALL-E image at that point, and the mathematics are out the window. It's just giving you what it thinks a grid of a cat looks like. Okay. So that was the first kind of.
That was interesting. I love that it kind of almost got there. Like,
and
you feel like you're like we're close to something. Like if we just had the right prompt, we could get there.
And maybe it is. So we'll see this with the next one. You can also see how this is full screen.
Yeah.
And DALL-E is small, right? Like it's an image, right, as opposed to this thing. So you'll see that in the next part when we look at it. Okay. So then, you know, I go in, and you know how you can change your prompt?
Yeah.
And so I go, here's my crappy grid. The grid that had the good stuff, I was like, great. Okay, now just, instead of those random colors, give me just these Game Boy colors.
Okay.
Right? And I'm like, now, and I don't think this is correct, because so I would go in and I would say, change it. And it would say, sorry, I got an error. And then it would rethink about it, and then it would give it to me. Every single time it would give me an error first. And so I don't think this is actually brick wall. I think this is smiley face. I said, can you give me a smiley face? Because I was like, we got to start simple, right? And so like this was its smiley face. And it was, see, it's showcasting a smiley face. See how it tells it what it is? And I was like, that isn't like, that is not what I would say. Like a smiley face would be this one, and one like smile across, right? If it had done it perfectly, exactly how I would think about it. So it just didn't know, right? It like, what I think is happening is the analytical side of it doesn't have any of that background stuff of like what a smiley face is. So it doesn't know how to do it. So the same thing happened, right? I go, use only these and make me a simple cat. And this was its simple cat.
Hey, it's getting closer.
Like, it has eyes. It doesn't have ears, though.
But
it
man,
looks like
it has a face.
It has a face, I guess. But like, it's a greenish cat.
I like it says greenish. It's like, yeah, it's kind of
light
BS.
color for the eyes. Like, and so I was like, okay, like cat blob. Yeah, exactly. And I was like, all right, what about like a barrel? And that was its barrel, like ish a barrel. So this is the point where I stopped going down this road because I was like, I don't know if it's ever going to like make some kind of badass art at this point, right? Whereas Dolly, I can make some badass art, right? Like badass looking ish clip, or pixel art. But this, I don't think I could ever tell it, make me a 64 by 64 barrel that is like half broken open with smoke coming out the top, right? Like from this, I don't think it's going to get there.
I don't think so, but I think we had a good feedback in the chat. Simple Cat's got to be in the game now. We will have that as a secret in the game. Good call out, chat. Nice. Hell yeah.
Simple Cat. Like, and so I tried a couple other things. Here's was like a stone wall. I knew we needed like background, and I was like, I don't think that's a stone wall either. Like, I don't know what that is, but I don't know if
honestly, okay, I'm just going to say that absolutely could be. And here's the thing is if all the black was the right background layer, that 100% will look like a stone wall.
Yeah.
That would look great.
So like maybe we can, so here's my thing. If we're trying to use DALL-E or any other type of like image generation, we're never going to get there in the sense of it giving us pixels. We can get inspiration, right? We can look at the cool big guy that we saw with the skull face and be like, that is a super freaking cool character.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do. But what I don't think it's going to do is give us that exact character in a way that the GB studio wants in that sense.
Yeah.
So that was my research basically.
So my 2 cents on that is that I have a little sticky note next to my bed and I wake up sometimes in the middle of the night and I write little notes in the dark to myself. And one of them was like, don't focus on AI this year. And I said, use it as a tool.
Yeah.
But like, maybe we don't want it to create everything for us, but give us, like you said, that inspiration, like help it. Like, let's use it as an assistant and a tool to help us through. But I want to hear where your head.
No, well, and I absolutely agree with that because like there is some very cool stuff that you can like, knocked over barrels. Like that looks super cool, right? Like I love that sort of style of it.
Yeah.
Like that just looks neat. Oh, here's one. So I asked ChatGPT at one point to give me a Sprite walking sheet, a thing in that thing of not DALL-E, but in this, like this was the pixel, like, and this is actual pixels, right? Like in that same sort of way. Here's what it gave me as a walking cycle Sprite sheet.
I mean, I would love to animate that to see if it'd be like a little dance.
Like, I don't even know what it would be doing, but this is like the analytical side of it, looking at that as opposed to, like we were showing before, these cool ones. Okay. So I'm going to bring up your reference sheet.
Okay.
So this was, this is an old one. This is one not optimized, right? Because there's, duplicates here. But for the most part, like this is your character.
Yep.
That you built, right? Spindly little head, long neck, little body, super long legs. right? He's sort of alien like
Mhm.
is kind of how I looked at him. And so I was like, all right, let's ChatGPT or let's Dolly image up some stuff.
I love the amount of research that this happens. I've not seen any of this,
Yeah.
by the way. This
Well,
is awesome.
I didn't get to see any Adam stuff.
Hell
Like
yeah.
so
Good
I was
job.
like, all right, like what if he had like a big head and he was alien like and he had long legs? Like these are the prompts that I'm putting in
man.
to get something to be like.
Just side note, this is totally our story too. Like
Yeah, well, yeah, no, that's true. I mean, aliens are definitely going to be part of like the Skullbob story for sure.
Hell yeah.
Okay, so like again, it's trying. It's got him walking this way. I was more like,
It's pixelated though.
It's pixelated.
It's way more pixelated. How
Right.
did you get it to do that? That's great.
so here's the problem with all of this stuff, and it's the same thing. It's like you can ask for the same thing, and it sort of gives you like both of these are badass, right? Like this one is cool, and that one is cool, but what they aren't is the same freaking character. It's like it's a slightly different version and a slightly different thing of that character. Like
It's in the grenades throw of ability though. That looks good.
yeah, like so these look cool, right? But again, look how many pixels tall
yeah.
this character would be to get that detailed in it. Like this is a Super Nintendo game.
Yeah,
This is not a Game Boy game. He is not 32 pixels tall. He's 100, he's 100 pixels tall
Yeah.
or something. So again, it's going to be like, what can that look like? I thought some of these were like kind of interesting, right?
Oh,
Again,
that first one, that's almost like
and they always want to make it where it goes like smaller to larger. I don't know exactly what's happening there. It like, I think because characters go up and then they go down, right? I think it sort of thinks it needs to be getting it from smaller to larger. They always do that.
Does it not have a seating mechanism, Mike Azul? Because I feel like certain ones do.
Yeah, even like it will help you do some of the style.
Wow, that one's cool.
Like, so this one was sort of like almost a skeleton, alien.
I love that one. That
Like,
was sweet.
But then like it's dark background, like everything would have to be dark background at this point. But then like he almost doesn't even move. Like it's the same.
He does.
like there's no walk cycle here. It's just pretendy walk cycle, right? It's sort of making a character and putting it in. Again, way too high res for what we're doing. Like, to be honest. Because then I started to take some of these guys and bring them into Pixel It and be like, what would he look like at actually 32 pixels by 32 pixels? And of course he looks like shit, right? Like it's not the cool like version of those
but it
guys.
shouldn't. That's not that many pixels. It just blurs it because that's like still a crap load of pixels, right?
No, but like, I mean, these are just sort of like approximations
Okay.
of this that I'm looking like.
Gotcha.
Like if you were to take this down to this level, what would
Right.
those look like?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me see. Do I have anything else? Okay, yeah. So here's the actual sprites that I created.
Oh yeah, boy.
Okay, well
Wait for it.
let's look at. So there was some like reference ones. Like I was
Oh.
like, so this isn't our guy.
No,
This
but
is
it's
like,
cool. I like
so
it.
like this was like Shutterstock or whatever. But I
Yeah.
was like, that looks like almost it could be 32 pixels,
Yeah.
or something like that. Up there. Of course, I had to have like different Mega Man guys, right? You're like, what does a run cycle look like in that? Same thing with like this Mega Man, which I loved, which is basically like, hey, it's three sprites, and that makes up his walk
Dancing.
cycle.
That's a good one.
But again, it's the full, like, I gotta have his whole head and everything. Okay.
yeah.
So what I actually built is I went in here and I was like, I like some of these guys, right? That we looked at, here's some of these like fun, walk cycle guys that I was doing. And like, there's
Yeah.
his actual pixel thing. Like that one is too big, but I was trying them at different sizes. Okay. So let me bring in the actual one. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh yeah, boy.
Okay. Oh, wait.
You could have just probably double clicked it from the folder.
So let's see. Sprites and alien
There's- sprite
sheet 2.
Oh gosh.
So maybe it might not look as cool as your other ones because obviously like I have to be in this small
No, that's awesome.
like form. Okay. Okay.
Oh,
So I had him as like,
I love
so
it.
like
I
a one,
love it.
so like he sort of has the same body type, right?
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
very big head, like little arms, and then long legs. And I was like, yeah, but I need him to have some sort of clothing on so that when his arms go across him, I can understand what's even happening, right? So basically what I have right here is like he has one pose where his arms are this way,
Yeah,
right? And one arm where his pose are this way. And so it's sort of like he's running.
Yeah,
You know, like
I can
those
see
are the
it.
two. And so this one is going in front and this one's going in back. And then I also wanted the same sort of thing for his legs. I needed to be able to differentiate between his legs so that when I did them crossed over, it would make sense that one was now in front of the other one. So I put sort of like a holster, or I don't know exactly what that is. It might just be like a uniform flourish or something like that, right? I just needed something. So I put this here because I thought it looked cool. So this is his I'm just standing here state, right? Like this is the idle. Okay. Then like it's one step forward and one leg back, and then they cross. And then now the holster leg is forward.
Yeah.
And then they would go back, right? And then it would cross back. So that would be like the walks. That would be the run cycle.
Yeah.
And then same thing with the jump, right? Like here's the jump. And then the jump, the crouch is just the jump.
Yeah.
But lower.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if this needs a
you
thing.
save.
Yeah. So like I was like, oh, we could do the jump and the crouch are exactly the same thing. And then the crouch walk is sort of like the little in between. So he's down and then he's like, and he's like walking forward, right? With still the same sort of like holster gun there. And then I did the same thing that you were saying, right? Which is like put the gun in the exact spot that his hand would be. So his hand, no matter which way, is always in this exact square in this part of it. So I think what you could do is be like, now his hand fits exactly into the square that he would be holding. And then also up, I guess, which is his like run state. I don't know if that's what you were thinking.
It's when he was pointing up.
Oh, when he was pointing up. Okay. And then basically what I did was, you know, I made the like up guy, which I didn't like. This is the climbing ladders, right?
Right.
So again, like he sort of has, I keep trying to middle mouse click to move around in this and it's not working on your computer. He sort of has this like, you know, thing that I just did that so that it looked like his head was sort of round or something, or gave it some kind of, you know, differentiation as opposed to a big black square over here. But then I feel like then when you see it from the side and then you see it from the back, you're like, right, that's the back of his head has that same sort of thing. And then the sash or whatever that is, and then the gun holster.
Let's load this sucker in.
Yeah, so then, but I don't have this like saved out.
No, you're all good.
I don't have this as part of it.
Let me do this part.
Okay.
If you're good, because I'm anxious to see this in.
Right?
Now I see some areas we're gonna have to tune because in the original one, like he doesn't have a leg up. Like he only had one leg.
Yeah, well, I noticed that, and I was like, how do you make it so? Because like when you're going up a ladder, you're sort of like you're grabbing this way and then you're grabbing that way. Like you need to have like both sides.
So I'll show you how we do that. That would be great. This is great. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was awesome. I think you did just like a crazy amount of work as well. We were both like, this is what makes this
also
fun.
part of this is I was like bringing in those reference photos and I was like, man, at this level, like I'm just drawing these sprites. Like at this point, I think I had said this before, maybe this was on the last Thursday, is I was like, I think we're going to have to draw all of our own characters.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's part of it. Like these run cycles and all this stuff, it's like so minuscule in there. But I think the backgrounds, maybe we can get a little bit more AI work.
Oh, I think so too. So what we're going to do, just so you can see how this is going to work, is in the folder. This is the folder structure of the game. This is how we run the GB Studio game. And this is so you can understand how you can do this is I'll go in my assets folder and there's a sprites folder. So I have my player sprite in there and I'm going to keep my old one and I'm going to do Yes, you
Wait, like yeah, exactly, like Prince of Persia style.
I was going to say Prince of Persia style. Hell yeah. So all I did was I changed the player 2, like the old one to player 2, just so I have it. And I changed yours to player. And that should be all I need to do.
Okay.
Like you literally like we should be able to play this game with your sprite in it.
With my guy now.
But the difference is because you may have changed some of the areas. Like I think the gun might be floating out, or something's going to be a little different. So
and I didn't get to do any of this because I was like, well,
oh wait, do I need to?
Didn't work. It was still the old guy.
Hold on a second. Let me double check here. Where are we at here? It was still the old guy. How did? Oh, maybe I'll just have to redo the. Player. Okay, there's your guy.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look in the sprites over here. Player 2. Oh, okay. I see what it did. So I'm going to close out and I'm going to hit don't save. And then we're just going to reload it so that it knows what to do. Because it should just look at the file and just use the exact file that's called player 1. So my assumption here is that you should have your guy in there. So let's see here. We're gonna start it here. I think that's where it was last. Oh, I didn't save it. That's right. So let's just build it. Let's see where it goes.
Okay.
Now, while it's building, we'll look at sprites, and my assumption is that player 1. Yeah, boy.
Nice.
There he is. All right. So we got idle right. There's your run.
Okay.
And it has the cycle.
Nice.
The jump. Okay, so the climb is going to be the problem.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is I'm going to take out this bottom. And so what we need to do is, okay, I'm going to have to reload the game anyway. So let me close
WebAssembly in their browser builds. I don't know what those words mean.
WebAssembly is, I'm not really sure. Is it a HTML5 thing? So here's your answer to your question, Ryan. See how his hand goes into these pixels right here? So you're going to have to not make sure those pixels are not there.
Because I did that with the top walk cycle, is I saw that you had done that. And I was like, I bet there was a reason that these arms are so short and don't invade into the pixels of the legs.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go this route and we're going to it's fudge it. It's not going to be exact, but that leg would be there.
Okay.
You can copy the leg, and I'm going to, I copied and paste it. Then I use the mirror tool over here, put it that way, and then you can put it one down.
Sure.
And then what I'd probably do is I would grab this whole thing, come onto this side, and I'm going to delete it all and paste it again. And then you just adjust that one
do the
up.
exact opposite. Yeah.
And then you take these ones and you mirror that.
I see.
And so now, if you go back between it, it looks like a little. I mean, of course, the sash is not right.
The sash isn't right. The holster isn't right, but I get it.
So let's look at the gun, because I think that might be one of our other challenges. See how you don't have to have it pixely from there. So if I see, it's crossing some of these boundaries here. So then that would take away from. So that's why we're maybe a sprite or whatever was helping me, because I knew exactly where it was. It looks like you did it, but for whatever reason, that one doesn't line up. But I can come over here and I can still put the gun in his hand.
Sort of back. There we go.
Like that? Cool.
Yeah.
So that was right?
It sort of looks like a military one. It looks, I don't know, for some reason when I built it, I was trying to make it look more alien-y.
So what's going to happen, though, and you're going to notice this, is that it's going to take up more, because the gun, if it fits within only one of these, it only takes off less.
Well, see, and I was like, oh, it's got to, I mean, it could probably fit in just a 8x8 if you moved it over, but I was trying to line it up with his hand, because that's what I thought.
Got it.
His hand is in these pixels, and if you laid it over the top, it would do that. But I was mistaken how it was actually going to get implemented.
Yeah, so this is the cool part, because you can just pull it in like that. Now, now as you see it, you're like, oh, now I see how these things come together. Right. Yeah. Hopefully that's going to help. Now that's a piece of, why is that there? That's the old sprite.
And his head too. I don't know what's happening there.
That's the gun.
Oh, okay, that's the gun.
Because this was player gun climbing. Oh, I remember what I was doing. I was trying to put the gun in his hand as he was climbing.
Oh, like on his hip.
Yeah, you can see. So maybe okay, his climbing animation is
Sure,
gonna be
it's
shit.
gonna be a little bit
Whatever. We're just gonna run it
Yeah,
from
yeah.
there, see how he goes. So
Yeah.
we saw the original game.
right.
Now we should be able to see your character. And so if we tweak this and we get it all in there, nobody's get to see this cool part. The double drop down. All right, let's see. I'm excited,
Nice,
dude. That's sick. Look at that.
His arms look a little wimpy. It's like
But look how quickly we were able to
Nice.
get your guy, because
Yeah,
this is the
yeah.
first time you've seen him
Right,
animated. Look at he's
totally.
like crawling up and
yeah,
down.
perfect.
Hell yeah.
I gotta see him with his gun.
Yeah, let's
Get-
go.
get to a,
let's go find his gun. Play this enough to know that his gun's right here.
Nice.
He looks great. He looks better than my guy, big time. This is great.
He looks like he has like a lazy like eye. He's just like bored of
He's
whatever
like,
he's
whatever.
doing. He's
I'm
like,
gonna
whatever.
kill. No, like you build character into. Oh shoot! I thought I shot him. Ah! What do you think?
Yeah.
Is that what you're?
Totally. Like I feel like the legs are especially good. The arms I would probably have to work on. But I think he does look cool when he's like holding his gun and shooting it out. I feel like it's
Ah!
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was thinking too. Like how like Mike is saying like, yeah, you got to have that eye blink, right?
Right.
Or you got to have him like, you know, because part of what I was thinking was hard with this. Oh, he's got you.
If you don't move,
You don't move.
don't move.
Yeah, and I forgot his head is in a hitbox in this.
yeah, I got out.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was thinking like, it, you know, like if you look at some of those sprites, it's supposed to be like when you walk forward. See how his head is always at the exact same spot? It's like he's skating across.
Yes.
It should be like when he goes down, his head goes down a little bit, and then when he comes up, his head comes up a little bit. But is that just like a wholly different sprite?
No,
And then you'd
so
be like, ugh.
here's what's sweet about that. So this is great. And so if we build it right, so if we're in, let's just do default mode, and we'll have to kind of, oh, maybe not. Maybe it's the run mode. Let's see here. Moving right. So on this frame,
No, like on that frame, he should be taller, right?
Okay.
Because his foot is coming up. It's when you hit the ground that you should be lower.
so this is where we're gonna have to be creative in the sprite. So I'm just gonna
Yeah.
just slightly bit like it's 1 pixel lower.
Yeah.
So if I go between that, right?
Oh, his head moved in some, so he's like his head is squishing in.
Yeah, he got a little bit in. Right? Is that is? I feel like there's like a piece of it that's still there. Okay.
There you go.
So,
Yeah. Right.
because all you're doing is you're just taking this and like you're just moving it, and you got to realize it's in a pixel. It seems like his arm goes down a little bit, but it seems like it's all above board. So now I bet you that makes it looks really good. So if you this is
Yeah.
where you're gonna have to test it and be like, all right, if I move this down a little
Yeah.
bit, will it like
Right.
actually
Like,
look?
well, I feel like in the end it'll be like, I want this character. You know, I want him to look like this. But I'm gonna have to do these like, you know, things so that I can push him down into each other. Like
Look
he
at
can't be so
his head's going down.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's moving with this thing. Nice. I love that.
And so you could keep that thing up. So when we were saying his idle and his eye should blink, I don't think I have like. Maybe I can use this one for it. Let's see here. See if I can make this happen.
You're just like throwing some random other pixel on top of it.
Yeah. So if I take this one and you put it here, and then on one of them I have to delete that little side or this one. So. Oh wait, shit. I didn't need that extra one. Hold on a second and delete that frame. So if we go between these two.
Sure, if that was like a full, you know, something over the top.
Over his eye, that would so in a and this is going to be bad because he's going to just be constantly blinking. We'd have to like slow the speed cycle, and we could work this.
Right.
But
Yeah, he's just be like
all right, let's see here.
he has like an eye twitch that is constantly going.
So we'd have to put some other frames in there, but the thing is it won't.
And I love it. It only happens when he's like idle. When he's running around, it doesn't. He's
good
fine.
to go. So how you would solve that is we'd have to say like, how many frames of this
Yeah.
do you do? So like you would just be like, let's say we put in crap load of the frames, and so that's when his eyes opened, right? So we grab all this, and then we just duplicate that frame. So it's like him just sitting there,
Right.
and then every 7 or 8 frames later, he's blinking.
Oh, right. You would just build it out like a huge long thing of him
Because
doing
this
it.
doesn't cost anything in our
Right.
memory.
Yeah. So you could be like, yeah, put 300. I want him to do blink once every 300 frames.
Yeah, and then we can also control the speed. So he's standing there.
Nice.
So you got your eye blinking. I mean, that wasn't that many, 8, and I
Right?
think that's about right. So these are the little nuanced things that I think.
Well, and that you need to find ways around, right? Because if you used a bunch of new pixels to make his blinky eye, then it would have been a waste.
This guy always does this. It's funny. It's just math that's making that happen.
Yeah.
It really started to expose to me how like games are really just a bunch of code, and I was like,
Sure.
holy crap! Like I made this little AI.
Yeah, that's true. This is definitely making us work within some bounds.
I think that's the fun thing is that you have to do that. One of the first characters, I built every character, and he had little different things, and it like totally tanked it. I was like, oh my god, how am I going to deal with this? Yeah, dude, he looks great. You did a great job. Look at that little blinky eye. That makes him look alive. That little thing.
Nice.
Oh, he has his gun because he doesn't have blink in his when he has his gun.
Oh,
I forgot.
right, yeah.
So if I go over here, his little blink is on.
Then it comes back every 8 frames.
My God, that's awesome.
Nice. All right. Do you want to see the background
Hell
sprites?
yeah, I do.
Okay.
All right.
So this won't be as dramatic. But let's see this one. Let's do sprites, then we'll do background tests.
And we should throw one of these in there for sure.
Okay. So this was just like, okay, I know we need a ladder. I know we need like a brick wall that can be duplicated across. These are all 8x8.
Okay.
Like I did a rock. Get out of here. I did a rock, and then I did like multiple rock like wall. Like if this was a wall, like I was basically if these were all stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
And then I did sort of like a pillar, like what did I call it? A gross pillar. I don't know. Like it seems sort of like it was, fleshy or something. And then I did a top on that, which are all just 8x8. And then I knew that like, let's say we're going to do skull bobs. I knew we needed barrels like that. A barrel just keeps being in the thing that I need.
And that barrel is just one 8x8, right?
Yeah. So this is like one 8x8 that is flipped, right? And then it is flipped like on top of itself. Like it should be the exact same piece, just like in
multiple
different
times.
Parts of the corner.
So here's this is going to be fun because this is great. So if I were able to say, okay, I'm going to save this, export it as a PNG. What I'm going to do is, so this is where Sprite, because I agree with you, like I could have done all this in Photoshop. What I love about Sprite is like it 100% is just for what we're kind of doing. It's like for making animations and pixel art kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how Sprite might attack doing some of this work. So I'm just going to say background test here, and then we're going to run Sprite. Did I close Sprite earlier? I probably did. Okay, so I'm going to open one of the backgrounds that we have. So what I should probably do is close this. I'm going to save our guy. So we have a version with your guy in it.
Okay.
And then I'm going to open up. So what I've been doing, and this is just my way of doing it, you can do it however you like, but on the desktop, of course, the file that I'm doing is like, it's a file with a bunch of stuff in it.
You're right.
So in that file, there's all these things. Like when you export it, you can get the ROMs in there. I put an extras file, that was mine, and there's like a build file. But in the assets, you have it broken into these different areas. And so it's sprites you'll probably work in, and backgrounds most. So I'm going to go into backgrounds right now. Here's all of my backgrounds, but I saved my A-sprite file inside of here. So every time I export it, it just overwrites the actual PNG. It doesn't hurt that the A-sprite file's in there, but it's like a quick way to say like, hey, if I want to go do something on the background, this is where I can go. So I'm going to open my sandbox. And so here's that level. Yeah, I could use this one. Let me see. Let me open another one. I want to open the testing room because that was fun. That was the one we started in. Testing room is the very first room we built.
Okay.
Here is our world.
Yeah.
Just pixels. What I did up below here is I created like this little pixel grid for myself.
Oh, maybe we're covering up all that fun.
You're absolutely right. Oops. Thank you.
Yeah, there we go.
I'll just take the pop-off for now. So what I did is I have like all the little elements on their own layers, so I could like kind of keep things. I did download a pixel layer that I found online, but I was like, no, I have to be everything for me, so that it's like 100% my thing.
Sure.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take what you just built, and I'm going to open, let's see here. It's right in here, background test. Now, I think backgrounds and sprites have different color sets, so we're going to have to deal with that.
I think so. I was trying it, and it was basically saying that backgrounds, you get that one extra color.
Okay. So I'm going to set the grid so you can put the grid on there. I'm trying to think. I like that barrel, so let's do that. So one of the things that I liked about this is it's very good at like pixel selection and like that. That's why I liked it. So if I put this guy... How do I paste it, or where did it paste it? Just a question. Did I not copy that? Oh, it's because it's on a layer that I can't put it on. So I'm going to put my own layer in there. New layer.
Okay.
All right. There we go. So there's a little barrel. And on this layer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete some of these side pixel. Wow, that is really big. I don't know why it's...
Oh, I thought the green would just like disappear. That super neon green.
It does. I think on background layers, it does something a little different. I'm not sure. Okay. So there's that, and then I should be able to. Yeah, it looks like shit for a minute, and then it becomes good. Uh-oh. I didn't do that well.
Well, see, and this was an issue that I was having in Photoshop, where I would be like, all I want to do is take you and flip you around the opposite way, and it would look fine for a second, and then it would freak out. And I was like, no, you just flip it, and it would like change the pixels, and it would do exactly what it's doing here.
There's a mirror mode on this, and I just don't know where it's at right now, because I've done this. Like, oh, maybe if I hold nope. Okay, I'm gonna grab it.
Like this was something where I went
there
like, okay, yeah, see, that looks, yep, there's the.
So what I did is I just held shift.
Okay.
So I'm just working with pixels right now. Like this is literally me selecting these pixels, pasting it back down, and just grabbing that thing. So if I grab, God bless America, if I get this Eric, okay, there we go, and hold shift. Oh shit, that's that side. So we need to do a flip.
That's too many.
But the center. Pull that in one. Cool.
Yeah.
That's the barrel, right?
Well, yeah.
Ish.
Except for it's bottom left, but yep.
Wait, what do you mean bottom left?
This part.
What is?
Just the part that you're doing right now that's left.
Okay.
There we go. And so that should only cost us one 8x8 pixel.
Yes. So what will be fun with this is what I wanted to show you is like these things right here could have been our barrels or something that we'd want to do. So what I would probably do is come into, let's see what layer that is. That's this hello world. I don't know why I used hello world. I thought I was being
you were being old school.
I was being cheeky with that. So we'll delete that guy and we'll put this guy in
And it also looks like it's in the background, like because your background is coming up in front of it.
So I put the grid way up at
Okay,
the
there
top,
we go.
so I should probably put the grid underneath. Okay. And then on that barrel layer, wait, is that the layer?
It says it's locked.
No, that was in the wrong layer. Layer 2. There we go. And you do have to select it. So you do have to kind of like find your way around it. So let's just put a barrel there.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I hit save on this, and then I'm just gonna export it.
Wait, do you need to change like the hit boxes for the barrel? Because it used to be a tall one, right?
Because this is all just in. Remember, this is a sprite.
Oh right, yeah, okay.
So
we're not in GB Studio.
We're not in GB Studio, so it's gonna redo that piece. If I run GB Studio now, and I turn GB Studio off so that like I can load this sprite in there.
Yeah.
And I should be able to. Let me get this one going.
You could probably put us back on the screen too.
Oh yeah, there you go. There you go. All right, we're loading GB Studio, so we should have a barrel, which you do.
Nice.
So this is a great example of how you could like play with it as we start working with it. Is I'm gonna zoom in. So this barrel, notice how it kind of like goes off to the side. So we'd have to like make sure it's within the grid. If I was back in a sprite, if I go to view grid. 8x8 is good. See how it like goes outside of that? That's where I'd have to say like, okay, we don't want that. We want it to be like exactly within the center there.
Yep.
So this is the cool thing. All I have to do is export it and overwrite that original one, and it's just gonna load it in the game. There's no
re-rendering.
It's perfectly in the right space.
Okay, cool.
And then I just have to adjust some of these things. So take these two off the top. Maybe put this maybe I'll put this guy over here. And then start a game. That's it.
Nice.
Now we got a barrel.
Now we got a barrel.
So we would just repeat. And all I did is originally, I was like, of course, these are just like 2 colors, a box. I needed something that you could stand on and you can run around with.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. And then, so right now it says 67 out of 96.
Mm-hmm. And that's because So
we've used how many? 13?
Tiles? Those are the tiles. That's how many tiles you can use.
Yeah, but like it used to be 54.
Yeah.
And so now it's 13 more than that.
And
that's because my character.
Yeah, it's because your character.
And the barrel.
Nope. The barrel is this one.
Oh, the barrel is.
Or, no, wait. No.
Those all count as different things?
Like this is just sprites and scene. The scene has 67 of. Yeah, this is only for sprites. This one is for actors, and then this one's for triggers. I don't think I can't remember what the limit is for this back end. Like, I think you could get a little bit more unique on the back end.
Really?
Not
really. Well, it's one of those things where like now that is part of the next level of research on this, right?
Yeah.
Is like
or
how
testing.
Yeah. How complicated can we make these things, right?
I think this is where we got to play with it, right?
Yeah. Like how many pixels can be on this screen, right? Does it matter how many pixels it is if the screen is this big or if it's super wide?
It has to be within factors of 8.
Okay.
So you can only go, or it actually absolutely screws up. Because I was like, I'm going to push that and see what happens. And I did it not in factors of 8, and everything screws up. The whole screen looks messed up. So basically 8 pixels or 8 times however high you want it to be.
8 pixels wide?
8. So yeah, what I'm trying to say, multiples of 8. So the height has to be divisible by 8. The width has to be divisible by 8.
Let me like. So in a normal Metroidvania type game, perhaps, let's say this is my guy.
Yep.
This is my guy. This is the background. There's normally like, you're in a dungeon or you're in a, exactly. Parallax screen would be neat.
Yes, you can.
So, like here's how I feel like Metroid and stuff gets around it, right? Is you're in a crashed ship and the majority of the background looks like metal, steel ship or whatever, right? But then there's like one big section here where it looks like the side of the ship is torn open and there's goo dripping down into something, right? And that's sort of, you're like, oh shit, that's like the cool, visual thing that you get to hang your hat on and be like, oh, it looks cool, right? But the majority of it is just kind of, the
basic
recycled, duplicated ship texture. So I need to know, like, how big can I make those? Can I make a bunch of those? Or can I only have 3 of those per game because we're going to run out of space, right? How many of those can be on the screen at one time? I assume if Metroid could get away with making the entire background a completely unique and crazy looking thing, that they would just do that. And so, like, obviously parts of it have to be duplicated and parts of it can be unique. And what is that ratio at this point?
So I know enough about the sprites and triggers and other pieces. I don't know that answer yet. And I think that's where we're going to have to run into it.
Well, and I think that's what, because, so let's say you were going to build, let's say the next step was to build, game levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, okay, you're going to here and then you're moving over here, right? You could absolutely do that with this level of just stuff, right? You would know, like, oh, we would need to go up a shaft, right? Like, we're going to jump up a shaft because we're leaving the basement and we're going up to the pub, right? Like, we would storyboard that stuff out.
Absolutely.
And you wouldn't need all of those things. But in the back, we should be researching and being like, oh, when I jump up to the thing, can I make it look like a whole crazy, shaft is falling apart? Or can I only do, like, a repeated wood texture in the background?
So I that's a great question. And there's also a question that Michael put in the chat. It's like, can you, number one, to your point, can we build a bunch of complexity? And then how many of those AST values are, and that's per scene right now.
Yeah, and like, what does scene mean? Like,
scene is this, like every scene is, this is a scene.
So, like, could I have a not wide? See how that is so widescreen, right? But then the other scene, your end scene, is so compact.
Yeah.
But I can have just as many sprites and crazy things happening inside of that I could have in this very long panoramic scene.
I believe so.
So then, like, now I feel like I just want them to be all small scenes.
But look at that 8 by 20, 2 by 10. So, from my understanding, is the Game Boy screen, and I can't remember the size of it, is this. I think it's exactly whatever this
160 by 144.
And so this is like, how many of those game screens can you fit into that thing? I don't understand. I'm going to be honest. I don't know why that one's at like 20 for actors on this one versus like 10 on this one.
Oh, like why you get more?
Because look at, this is 30 and 96. 30 and 96, but for some reason I know why. The actors do not appear, they do not materialize on the screen if they're not within that pixel screen. So imagine like a box of the Game Boy screen, and so as you're running through it, so if this is a humongous level, it should still be fine.
So that's what I was hoping, right? Is like, let's say, because I mean, in a different world, right? Like, you could make the entire game as one long panoramic scene, right?
Sure.
And as long as you're 144 pixels wide, doesn't have more than 10 characters or more than whatever X amount of unique pixels in it, you can move around inside of that as long as they don't, get too complex within that world. But you could make that across this entire thing, I think. So
I think you could.
So this is all the research that I feel like we're going to have to do as we start thinking about like how complex this art is and how like duplicative it needs to be for each one of like the sections.
And I wanted to do that. Like, I'm trying to find like here it is. It's on the front. Okay. So let me try this. So because I was going to try it right now.
Yeah.
We did this last time. It was that crazy barrel scene that you had.
Oh yeah. Right. Yeah. The dolly, like,
Is it a web? It's a
fake
image. Where the hell is it? Right.
Well, I don't think I brought it this time.
No, this is it. Hold on.
From last time.
This one, right?
There we go. But I had a cropped version that didn't have those like swatches.
That shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
Oh, I see what I'm doing. Okay, so let's do this. So I'm going to open from here. And this one should be the image. Okay. This is huge. This is going to be ridiculous. So I'm going to just test it. And so let's say we were going to say to grab this. Oh no, the colors are wrong though. That's the problem. So it should adjust for it though, but we'll see in a second. Oh crap, I did not mean to do that. I'm going to grab this whole scene, copy that. I'm just going to chuck it in the background for our testing room. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
Like, right?
Right.
So new layer.
I mean, I think it's going to freak out, right? Is basically.
That's what I'm thinking too, but we'll see. All right. Let's just see what happens. I think this is where we'll have to scale it back. This is where your maybe research would be, is like go see if there's some formula. Or
to be honest, that was what my research what I was going to do for this one, and then you were like, "Oh, we need these sprites because I've gotten so far in this game," and I was like, "Okay, I'll build sprites instead." But this is what I was gonna like put complicated backgrounds and then just keep making them less and less complicated until it was like,
you're good. Here's your answer right here. Background contains too many unique 8x8s.
Right.
2,240 where the limit is 100 you can only have 192 unique pixels or 8x8 squares.
So
192 unique tiles.
8x8 tiles?
Correct.
I'm trying to think like how many 8x8 tiles there would be in a 160 by 144 grid.
That's what you, and that's probably why you see these very sparse, like you said earlier, sparse backgrounds with like one cool thing on it.
Exactly, because that's what I'm thinking. Like, is that's what it's gonna be mostly texture and mostly like block that you're jumping on is always the same as everything, right? And like. But then some sort of little swath of something cool, like at one entrance or the top of it or the bottom of it.
But remember that like you can get super unique. Like this is 4, but it's one unique thing, but we were able to use 4 of it. And so that's what the fun of this is that you're like trying to like say, how can we make this cool thing that you might use like the eye blink.
Mm-hmm.
We just use some random like foot of the guy to like go over that. So I don't know. To me, this is the fun part because you're able to like how do you like make this crazy scene, but limit ourselves to it?
Yeah. Well, and I think
yes, just to Michael's point. Yes, you can use the 8x8s multiple times. So right now, this block right here that's being used in this map.
We only had to pay for that once.
Now you can use it as many times as I can put as many of those as I want in here. And basically it's 192 individual different tiles that we can use in a scene.
But if you had that same block and like one pixel was different, your entire 8x8 block is unique at that point. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So to test this, let's do that. So let's say we export this one because this is the stuff that we need to learn. I'm going to stop this stuff from happening. I don't know why it's doing that anymore.
You're like, you don't need to confirm anything.
Okay. So right now, if I click into this, let's see, 8, 67, 90. Okay. So I'm going to run. Well, I guess I don't know where it's going to tell me that. Because in the build, it gives you only when there's an error. If everything else is running fine, it ran just fine, right?
Okay.
Let's just see one other thing, though. Let's go to... So we're going to need 8, 67, and 6. If I go in and I change one single pixel, let's see if any of those numbers change. And I'll have to do it... let's do it on this one. Right?
Yep.
That should change it.
So that should be a unique 8x8 square now.
Yep. And if we go back in the game, just make sure it's on there. Yep, there's that little block. See it?
867.
It's the same. Isn't it? It's the same.
It's the same.
So what's happening here is it just says a 192. We're not going to track that. That's a lot. Now we'll throw an error in the build, but you should figure out 192 tiles. So what I would probably do in your case is create like a one master template with every little block or multiple. Like you can make one that was 16 by 16 if you wanted to make like the cool ship or something that you wanted to build.
Because could I do? Because like 8x8 is tiny, right? Like 8x8. I mean, you saw what you can get with an 8x8. It's like a very blocky thing, but a 16 by 16, is then a little bit better. Like it looks like that barrel.
Yeah,
is a 16 by 16.
Yeah,
a 32 by 32 looks like the tipped over barrel with the lid showing.
Right.
And a 64 by 64 looks like a crashed freaking spaceship, right? At that point. So are you sort of like, I'm going to spend my calories on these 64 by 64 like pieces in the end? Because you want this boss to look cool? I guess that's kind of the thing,
it's per
right?
scene. It's per scene.
Per like 160 by 144 Game Boy scene.
No, what I'm saying is like in this one scene, you can have 192 unique blocks. You go to this next scene, you can have a whole nother 192.
Then why would you make anything like panoramic like that? Like it feels like all of your things, if you wanted something to look cool, it would need to be in the smallest scene that you could possibly get, right?
No. Because you would just say like this, like what I just did here. That is how many blocks. Let's see if.
See, it's like the same numbers.
Yeah, because this is never going to change. That's what I'm saying. Like what it's doing, it's just saying like you have 190. Like that whole little thing, it's great. Didn't throw an error. Can run with it. This scene doesn't have 100. I don't know what it is, and I don't know where to look for it.
Yeah.
But there's 192 unique blocks, and just by me scribbling on this
scribble more, like scribbling around that entire area and make that entire thing. Like, can you get it to error by just?
Yes. So I'm betting like we're gonna get to a point right here. Oops. Need a hotkey for that. Oh, there's.
And then like what does it? It just like slows down, or it just doesn't work.
Won't work.
Okay.
Yeah, we're basically at the point of once you hit that 192, it's gonna be like, yep, we can't do that.
Yeah, I can't even render this. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, here's the limits. We can only have 4 megabytes total in the game.
Yeah.
On any given scene, you can only have 192 unique 8x8s.
Yeah.
So if we had one like this scene and it was pretty much just like blank, but you made this really complicated barrel and things coming up, and like it's within 192 like block kind of thing,
right?
You can make that sweet
that would be
thing.
Yeah.
Because like we're still doing it. It's still working.
Yeah.
So you can,
and it's weird because it's almost like because I feel like is it even doing it with the 8x8 at this point? Because it feels like those would be unique enough like things for it.
Because look at there's one block, there's 2 blocks. Let me just do an A sprite. It'll be better because I could zoom it in. Oh, look at that! It had a. How did I do that? How did I make it do that? Oh, I just pushed Control. So that, okay, let me go back.
It's probably on a layer, right?
228 pixels by 108 okay, 8 pixels. 19. Why is it saying 8 pixels?
I don't know.
Oh, because it's the between this part and to the top. So it's saying this is 120 or 228. This is 19. That does not look like 19 pixels. I don't know what the hell it's telling me. Oh, it's just showing from the edge.
Yeah.
It's not showing the actual dimensions.
Yeah.
So if we calculated that, I don't know, you'd have to count it all out. Whatever this grid is, like look at all these ones that are the same. These are all the same. So it's only calculating like this is unique.
Well, and
this
so
is unique.
here's what I don't know too. How so that you know how you grabbed from my PNG and you were putting it in here? Like I sort of assumed I would be like saving out a PNG as a tiny little like 8 pixel by 8 pixel PNG, and you just have a bunch of those. So how can I, because in that sense, if I could, let's say that was how you did it, I would know, oh, this is 1 kilobyte and this one is 3 kilobytes and this one, and then I could be like, all right, I'm rolling that all up and now I'm at 3.6 megabytes, right? But if it's all just sort of compiling in here, I feel like, how do I know what size this is, or what, like, should I be worried that I'm going to make too many things in this and then it's going
just
to be
the size of whatever that file is at the end. So this file, let's just go look at that. What is the size of that file? And that will help you. At least that version of it. It should be really damn small. 7 kilobytes.
Was that like
For
background
the
or
whole,
whatever?
that whole testing room was
Great.
7 kilobytes.
So I feel like, because we're working in this like small thing, there shouldn't be too much worry about that, right? Of like getting to even 4 megabytes.
No.
Okay.
So I think that anything you do, and maybe the takeaways from tonight as we start to wrap for all this work, like I think, tell me this didn't take us a whole step forward at understanding.
Totally.
But this is where, okay, so I want to show something before we get off of this. It's that we joined GB Studio,
their Discord.
Their Discord. And so they got a bunch of stuff. This is where we can like get feedback, get help from people.
We already had comments. Adam put in one little thing and we got comments.
And people were like, yeah, Epic Store, can't wait for the game. And so like just got people in here so we can get the story going. Or like so we get people like joining us and helping us.
Yeah.
And then what's cool about it is if I'm in GB Studio and you go down to where our game is, if you go to Work in Progress Forum, you can see all the crazy ass games that other people are making right now.
Look at their barrel.
Hell yeah. Look at those worlds. That looks a lot more intense.
Yeah.
Like go look at this thing. I downloaded a crap ton of these games and I'm like, those look good.
Fat Dracula? Who doesn't want to play that?
That one looks cool, but it's a little like, different. Let's see here. So I've been playing a bunch of games, so maybe that's where I can I feel like we got this.
Sure.
Because one of the things is
because the games you've been playing suck.
No, they're great. Well, and I'm just saying I know we could at least get to the level some of those games are at.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I saw was, okay, if I zoomed out of this, look how many little levels there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have seen people's things and it is like loaded. There's 60 of them.
Right, yeah.
And it's like crazy across the board and there's all this
how
other
it would
stuff.
have to be. I mean, if we were going to make a Metroidvania game, there's going to be 100 maybe per section, right? Of areas that you go into.
And this is where you can reuse areas. You can do different things with the sprites and add other things.
Well, that's what you have themed areas that you're in, right? You're in the crash spaceship, or you're in the cave, or you're in the dungeon.
So the other last thing that I wanted to do is I found a tutorial online that allows us to do a map. So if we hit select, it was going to open up a map and it's going to show you where you're at across a crazy thing. So I'm gonna work on that kind of crap and figure out how you do all that.
Because we absolutely need that too, right?
But here's my pitch. And I said I was going to have one. It's what if we did it Metroidvania, and then I've been watching you do Alan Wake. And what if we had a mind room or a mind palace in it? How sweet would that be?
Totally. Well, I feel like what could be, so let's say we pick Skull, we're doing Skull Bobs, right?
Yes.
We don't we have this sort of a basic start. We have an intro, and then we we can kind of open it up from there. And we kind of have the idea of who the character is and what sort of it is. But what I feel like is what you do is you come up with sort of a fun thing in the game, and then you just come up with the storyline that goes with it, right?
That's what we're doing.
If we can get some kind of fun mind palace thing happening, then we'll build that into whatever the story is, right? And make that a fun part of it.
What I guess I'm saying is that I did a bunch of games and everyone's we're just going to do the shoot 'em up game, or we're going to do the RPG game. What if it was that anytime you hit the select button, now you're in the mind palace, and that's where you run around and you do like something in there.
Yeah,
Like that's
solve puzzles or something like
menu.
that, or do something inside of it.
Or yeah, like and if we're back in this game, and let's say instead of you going in a door, you're going in you go in this door. You could, don't overcomplicate. No, what we're saying is that you go in the door and then it changes the mode to the RPG, like top down mode.
Right.
So like you're in this whole crazy level and you're doing the
and
normal
that's almost
shooting.
like the real world, right? Or something like that's where you're fighting aliens and doing something. But when you go into these doors, then you're like in the above world of something else.
And it's simple enough because you can just swap it out to that.
Well, and that's what I feel like, that's where you make it where you go, hey, what is different between this and any other game, right?
Correct.
That is on that. Like we'd hope that we would use our creativity, right? And be like, hey, that was why like you sent me that video, right? Of like, hey, it was a guy and he did a video of it. And I was like, yeah, he completed a game, but I don't know if that is a fun game to play. Like it's just sort of it is what it is. And you're like, hey, cool. You made a thing, right? As opposed to something we're like, holy crap, I want to see what's actually next.
And I think the story is going to be the thing.
Yeah.
Like story is going to be.
I have an idea. I have ideas for storylines and stuff too. But maybe that's next time.
And I think that's what we're going to do is that this was this. Can we even do the damn thing?
Right.
Do you feel?
I feel like we definitely can.
So here's
our guy.
Here's Mind Palace in my example. Now look at like in the other one you had to jump. Okay. For whatever reason, it's not going to work. But like he can run left and right. But if I go up and down, like I'm like walking around this whole world.
Yeah.
So instead of it having like you're a platformer, now you're kicking over into that RGP mode where you get a cool little fun puzzle. So I'm thinking like the dynamics are you could tell story in this mode. You go find some little like. You found the book and you read a little about it, or you're in the little area and you find the barrels and you found that part. Now you go, and so this is where you're not action, you're not shooting, you're not doing that part. Right. That's the story mode. And then you flip back into the mode and you're like, now you need to get out and
now
you got to
get there. Yeah. Like, yeah, I agree. Like, I think having something interesting like that and there's a whole top-down mechanic, right? There's like all the little areas that it gives you. I feel like we have to utilize on like every single one of those, like in the game to make it different and make it like interesting. And we just have to figure out what is our cool style and
what are the couple we
want
to use, and let's make it work.
Totally cool. Yes, well, I definitely think that learned a lot, and
11 o'clock. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, for hanging out. It's like perfect timing. This is awesome.
No, this is good. I was excited to show you because of like I didn't see your character, you didn't see what I did, and we got to come up with like a blinky like guy now.
Nice.
So I think by next time, what we're gonna start to figure out is we're gonna hit this with a little bit more structure. Last time when we did the board game, we were kind of like this every time, like just showing stuff off. So I think what we might not do next time is not go deep into the game, but we might bring up something and we start mapping like what are the worlds, analoging that, and like putting storyline. Or
I do think that part of it is we need to know that like we did this. We know we're going to use GB Studio. We know we could sort of build things. Now it's like, what story are we telling?
Yes.
Because then you can start building out how the screens go, right? Because you could say, oh, he's going to start in the bar and that's going to be a long shot of this, right? And so let's build a long corridor. And then what happens at the end of the corridor and things like that. So I think it's almost like we need a topic discussion, right? Of like what it's going to be and what are sort of the main maybe areas we're going to be in, or like the main sort of like story arc. And then we can start being like, yes, I have played Fizz. That is also a cool twist. I'm like, we're not going to be able to twist it that much, I doubt. But like, yeah. And then what is going to be interesting, right? Inside of that, what are like the big set pieces? What's like a mini boss that we can get to? What's the boss level? What are the, he's going to get some kind of weapon or he's going to get some kind of ability at this section. And that's going to allow him to open up into this other section. And I think like, that's where you could start. And obviously that'll all change, like in between, but I think like if we could start getting a direction of stuff like that and sort of mapping it out in Mural or whatever, Like, I feel like you can almost do it there.
100. So that Robert Doman that I keep talking about, that's talked about, he has a whole episode on talking about a huge game. And the thing he says is, if you're going to run this route, understand the physics and all the different pieces and coding, then put that to the side.
Right.
Then take out your sheet of paper and draw it all out.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we're at.
Totally.
And this is because I can't see us just like jacking around in this all the whole time, and nobody wants to watch us do GB Studio that. You want to see the cool games we build,
right?
And do all that,
and we'll be doing that in the background, right? Being like, okay, what are the sprites that are going to be using to make this? Like, how, like, oh, we have this whole corridor. We're going to build that over the next 2 weeks of being like, what is that built up of? And let's get the major like sections blocked out and stuff like.
And this is where everyone in the chat helps.
Yeah.
Because we're going to post those games and you say, hey, this part sucks.
Right.
Or this, like,
this is
hey,
like,
this is really fun.
Totally.
And then we're going to have like cool characters that we can put in there based off of your feedback. This is a group effort, everyone. So you're hanging out with us. We appreciate the insight and the support. We're about to roll with this, and I think we've got GB Studio is Are we solid on that?
I feel like we're good on GB Studio.
Skullbob's stories,
and I think we're good on because we want to sort of like close that loop. We do, you know. So I feel like at least our very first game,
That's where it all started too. So hey, thanks for hanging out tonight, helping us go through this. I like the idea of little side games. Thank you for that feedback. I think that's what's going to be fun about this as we move through it.
Yeah.
So if you're not familiar, we are going to keep putting those different pieces into the chat so that I think I even have one right now. Let me see if I can chuck it in there. I chucked it in there earlier. But if you wanted to play what we just played tonight, do I even have chat mode up? I do. We put it in there a little bit earlier, but put it in there so you can have it for this evening. Go and play the game. It's not the new guy yet. We'll put that one up next. If you like to check it out, let us know how it works.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there.
Totally. Right. AI's got 49ers, you know. I'll probably even with the Super Bowl, I might be still streaming a little Alan Wake too. In the morning. We're doing those Alan Awake streams Sunday mornings, 9 a.m. to 11 at the only true time zone, Mountain.
And it's been amazing. So I've been watching them unless I've been sleeping through the last one. So
That's right.
Go T-Swifts. Y'all have a good night. We thank you.
All
It's been awesome hanging out tonight.
Yeah. Good night.
Peace.